Good evening. Welcome to the May 16th, 2019 meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion.
So moved. Second.
Mr. Hahn?
Aye.
Mr. DeCessa?
Aye.
Mr. Daly?
Aye.
Ms. Burgess? Mr. Tuthill?
I'm going to say aye, but just to make the record clear, I wasn't at the last meeting, but was provided with a CD-ROM and brought myself up to speed with the entire meeting.
Okay, chair votes aye. We also have want to make a motion to approve an amendment to the minutes to just correct a typo in the minutes.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. DeCessa?
Aye.
Mr. Hahn?
Aye.
Mr. Tuthill?
Aye.
Ms. Burgess? Mr. Daly?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Just a few things before we get started. The first is I wanted to ask if all of you who are here could do us a favor and silence or turn off your cell phones because they interfere with our recording equipment. Secondly, if you are inclined to speak in the audience, that is to one another in the audience, if you can do us a favor and go out to the hallway to speak rather than speaking in the auditorium because that also interferes with our recording equipment. Lastly, I just want to read our emergency evacuation rules. Prior to the start of this meeting, I would like to inform everybody of our emergency procedures and exit routes. In case of emergency evacuation, please exit through the rear doors of this room to one of the staircases across the hall and continue downstairs and out through the main entrance. Please do not attempt to use the elevators during an emergency evacuation. In case of a medical emergency, the automated external defibrillator and first aid kit are both located in the hallway on this floor opposite the elevator. Restrooms are located across the hall. And with that, we will get started with the agenda.
Okay, there are some changes to the agenda, so you folks know. Going to...
By motion, or can we just move that?
What are you moving?
Just move it up.
What's the neg?
Oh, we can move
No,
it
hold
on.
on a second.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll get to it.
Yep.
Item 11 on the agenda, Hampton Cove Realty. I'm going to move that we adjourn that to 8/1/19.
Second.
Mr. Tuthill.
Aye.
Mr. DeCessa.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Nah, aye.
Mr. Hahn.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Item 12 on the agenda, Fields Edge House LLC has been withdrawn. And on the decision calendar, I'll move that the Wuseldorf decision be put off till our next meeting, which is 6/6.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
And Jay, you want to talk about Sadowski?
Sure thing. I would like to make a motion to adjourn Jeffrey Sadowski. Just so the record is clear, we did receive an email from Robert Fischette, the attorney for the application of 190 North C. Mecox Road. The attorney asked to condition the approval decision based on, so we haven't received stamped plans yet. I did not feel comfortable with doing that, so that is the reason for my adjournment.
So I agree, and I'll second
So
that.
you can put it over to 6/6?
Yes, I would like to make a motion to adjourn Sadowski decision to 6/6.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, we're going to take item 13, which is the Long Island Automobile Collectors LLC, because Mr. Marcinsick doesn't want to be here tonight, or stay here. So, Katie, you got something to offer us here?
Not true.
That's not true.
Why'd you send us an email?
Because in fairness to Rob, we continue to adjourn this because we were waiting for a recommendation from the planning board. They were the lead agency. They adopted a negative declaration on May 9th. They're still working on the report, so they will have the report to us. But we had just put it over because we were waiting to hear from that and wanted to see if there were any more questions from the board before we closed it.
Okay, so we're gonna receive the neg deck
Yep. Right. We'll-
Yep.
and put it over for a decision on 6/6?
assuming there's nobody here.
Assuming there's nobody's here. Is there anyone from the public who'd like to be heard this evening in connection with the application of Long Island Automobile Collectors LLC? This is 315 County Road 39 in North Sea.
So just
Okay.
keep the record open for the written report. We'll close it for decision at the next meeting.
Okay. Close determination 6619 with written submissions. Leaving it open for written submission.
Second.
Okay. Mr. Tudhill.
Aye?
Mr. Hahn.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess. Mr. DeSessa. Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a
Good
good
night,
night.
Rob.
Always a pleasure to
Try not to stay so long this time, okay?
You're very quiet tonight, Rob.
Okay, item 1 on the agenda is Charles DeFalco, 98 Lewis Road, in East Quogue, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-340-2-6. Applicant requests the following relief from the provisions of Town Code 330-115, continuance for a proposed one-story addition to an existing dwelling. 1, a principal total side yard setback of 37.1 feet where 39.4 feet is existing, and 2, a principal rear yard setback of 38 feet plus or minus where 49.9 feet is existing on a non-conforming lot, and any other relief necessary.
Board has jurisdiction. You guys have Jason.
Good evening. I just have to swear you in unless you're an attorney.
Sure.
So you can state your name and address.
Charles DeFalco, 98 Lewis Road, East Quogue, New York.
And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. You can tell us about the application.
Okay, I'm requesting total side yard relief for my setbacks of 2.3 feet and rear yard setback at 10.5 feet. This is for a proposed addition to my property that I own. This addition will create no change in the character of the surrounding neighborhood, and I'm also going to be improving the neighborhood and the community as part of this renovation by installing a nitrogen recovery system as part of my septic system upgrade. The changes that I'm proposing are consistent with the recent improvements made to the adjacent properties at 97, 100, 101, and 102 Lewis Road, as per the GIS photographs attached as my application. You can see from the years from 2001 to 2018 the changes in the adjacent properties. I've received written endorsement from my neighbor who owns the properties at 97 and 101 Lewis Road. I have copies of that here if you'd like.
Submit them to the attorney.
Okay.
Yep.
And I've also received verbal endorsement from my neighbor at 96 Lewis Road for these improvements. I'm requesting relief because my lot is substantially substandard for my R20 zoning, whereas I'm sure you know, R20 zoning has a minimum lot area of 20,000 feet, whereas my lot has 12,300 square feet, and a minimum lot width of 120 square feet is required under R20 zoning, where I'm only 100. That combined with my shallow lot depth really inhibits my ability to improve my property based on and utilize the allowable lot coverage that I'm permitted under the code. So this is really the most reasonable use of my lot space without impacting my neighbors and while staying consistent with the other improvements previously mentioned to my neighbors.
Okay. So we did get some comment from the building department.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if you've gotten a copy of.
Yep.
And this is what we got. This is from Dennis O'Rourke, our principal building inspector. The survey shall be revised to indicate the rear yard setback to the proposed addition. And I was actually looking for that on the survey. And 2, the plans shall be revised to indicate that the space above the kitchen will be used for storage only, and the ceiling height of the space shall be reduced to 6 feet 8 inches to be considered non-habitable.
Okay, so I did submit the revised survey showing that.
We must have received it. It's probably in our submittals.
Yep, I have a copy of it here, if you'd like me to submit.
Great.
So that is done, and my architect also came in and marked up the plans with Candace and initialed the changes, so that's all done as well.
Okay.
Can you tell us, I don't have the copy of the survey in front of me, can you tell us what the new principal rear yard setback, like it said 38 feet plus or minus?
Yes, I can tell you exactly.
Or if somebody has it on the board,
I think it's 39.4,
39.4.
what the survey I'm reading at.
Yep, it's marked there.
Okay. The good news is, that this is modest setback relief. So, the impact, there may be a neighbor here, I'm not sure, but in a circumstance like this, I would have to really be convinced that this is going to have a negative impact on an adjacent property owner. Be a tough sell. Any other questions from members of the board?
Can I have the letters in support that you have? Or have you already submitted those?
I have not submitted the letter.
Is there any?
You have two?
You have two, right?
Yeah, one.
Two.
Well, I brought 2 copies of the same letter.
Oh, he's got 97 and
owns 2
101. Yep.
properties.
Yep,
You
okay,
pass that
no
to
problem.
Jason?
Okay, is there anyone from the public who would like to be heard this evening in connection with the application of DeFalco? This is for 98 Lewis Road in East Quogue. Any other questions, members of the board? I forgot to ask. Okay, if not, Jay?
Yes, we're not waiting on anything, right? I will make a motion to close the public hearing and have a written decision at our next meeting, which, 6/6? 6/6?
Second.
Second.
Mr. Hahn?
Aye.
Mr. DeSessa?
Aye.
Mr. Daly?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Burgess? Mr. Tudhill?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you for being here.
Thank you all.
Have a good night.
Item 2 on the agenda is William Perino, 12 Nash Road in Flanders, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-123-3-19. Applicant requests relief from Town Code 330-115C, continuance for a principal front yard setback of 17 feet where 21.5 feet is existing for a proposed covered stoop, and 330-84D pyramid height for an encroachment in the amount of 3,694 cubic feet for a proposed 2-story addition to the existing dwelling on a non-conforming lot, and any other relief necessary.
Board has jurisdiction. You pass that to
Good
Cornell.
evening. Unless you're an attorney, I have to swear you in. If you can state your name and address.
Brooke Epperson, A500 Old Sound Avenue, Mattatuck, New York.
And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, if you could tell us about the application.
I am the architect and applicant for Mr. Perino, who is my client and the owner of the premises. He acquired this building he lives in Brooklyn. He acquired this building to move out here. His daughter is out here. The property currently is pretty dilapidated and it needs work. It is a 1-story building. My coworkers measured it and I don't think they were alone. I think there was some raccoon in there with them. So the site really does need some work right now. They want to add a 2nd story so they can get the bedrooms upstairs. He has several grandchildren that will be visiting. The height is not too crazy above what it already is. We're using dormers on the front and side to help get the headroom in the spaces above. This is in a flood zone of 6 feet. The current existing first floor is already above 8 feet, so we're at 9 foot for the existing floor, which means they are already flood compliant. And the footprint will not change from what exists. He didn't want to go out. We wanted to leave the property as much left of the property as possible. That's why we wanted to go up instead of going out. And this lot is already an undersized lot, so he really wanted to just focus on getting up instead of taking away from the property.
Very small lot.
Yes.
6,000 square feet, very, very small lot.
Yes.
60 feet wide.
Right,
Yep.
right. Are there 2-story residences in the neighborhood?
Yes, there is the property right to the east of him. That is a 2-story dwelling. There's a property to the southwest of him. That is also a large 2-story structure. There are other houses in the neighborhood that are 1-story, 1.5. They have some dormers, but they have the headroom that he is lacking in this house currently.
Okay. And the neighbors, have you heard from, maybe you indicated earlier, that, have you, and maybe there's a neighbor here, I think there is.
Okay.
Okay, have you heard from any of the neighbors?
We are also looking into upgrading the septic system. So part of that was to design a new system in the lot, and since it is a tiny area, we do have to contact the neighbors, and the 2 properties directly next to him were contacted regarding that.
Okay. Well, the reason I asked is I wasn't sure whether you've heard any, from any of the neighbors, whether any of the neighbors were concerned with the application, with this application.
I haven't heard anything before today, no.
Okay.
What are the ceiling heights? Because I didn't see a cross-section.
It's 8 feet existing in the first floor, and then we are also doing another 8 feet in the second.
I mean, it's,
Well, we always ask to see on the night.
No, it's fine. I mean, it's almost 3,700 cubic feet of relief. It's significant
Right.
pyramid relief. But it's a 6,000 square foot lot. And I would think in a circumstance like that, it is very difficult to comply with pyramid, no matter what you do.
Right. And like I said, we tried to keep it as low as possible using dormers instead of just going with a straight full roof with an attic. He doesn't have attic space using this design.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's the existing square footage and what's the proposed?
The existing square footage is of the first floor.
Yeah, just what,
Sorry, I don't have that information on me. But it's, not, like I said, we're not extending past what exists. So we're just adding, the second floor is the same
okay.
as the footprint.
And the footprint is how much?
It's,
Square footage.
can I use my calculator really quick?
We're gonna see if anybody's here, so. Yeah. Figure it out.
Yeah, we could do that. Any other questions of members of the board? Is there anyone here this evening in connection with the application of Perino? This is for 12 Nash Road in Flanders. Okay. You can either have a seat or go to the podium, whatever you prefer. Okay, no problem. And I just have to swear you in unless you're an attorney.
I am an attorney.
You're an attorney, then I don't have to swear you in.
Live in the neighborhood.
Okay, no problem.
That counts. It's
But if you could state your name and address.
Sure. My name is Lorraine Pacelio, and I reside at 23 Nash Avenue, Flanders.
How do you spell your last name?
It's Pacelio, P-A-C-E, Pace,
Could you say it a little slower?
Pace, P-A-C-E, and then Leo, L-E-O.
P-A-C,
P-A-C-E-L-E-O.
and the first name?
Lorraine.
Okay.
I live across the street a little bit over. I live directly next to 17 Nash Avenue, and I object to the variance request for 12 Nash Avenue. And by the way, it says road on the application or on the agenda, but it's not road, it's avenue. 17 Nash Avenue is right next to me, and it sits directly across the street from 12 Nash. So 12 Nash is in the Bayview Pines community, made up of approximately 269 homes, originally developed mostly as a seasonal beach community. Due to various factors, my community is now full of homes, over-occupied by multiple families, most of which were not built for high occupancy. The house right next door, which both neighbors were notified, the one right next door is highly rented, multiple families. There's at least 4 to 5 families, residents occupying that house. They change consistently. The town has not been able to get that house under control. The cesspool is out of control. There's been multiple complaints about that house. And I'm sure the guy would not object as long as he's getting his rent. He's happy. On the other side of 12 Nash, which is the larger home, is also for sale, which is probably why you didn't hear from those owners as well. So no reason for them to object. They'll leave in the neighborhood. The house across the street from me is a large 2-story. It's owner occupied, and it sits on a lot 3 times the size of 12 Nash. I also have a letter from my neighbor, who's right next to me, directly across the street from the house in question, 17 Nash, who also objects. He is a seasonal owner, and he asked me to come and present his objection. My main objection in allowing the owner the variance will be forcing us residents with a higher capacity to deal with this large house, which will maybe, not now, but might be in the future, full of multiple residents. This house was taken out in Sandy. I don't know how it could meet the 6-foot height, but I think it's the only house on our block that got killed in Sandy, took on water, and has not ever been occupied since. It is on a very small lot, and it's not made to hold as large a house as you guys pointed out. We have many, many high occupancy houses in our neighborhood already, and to allow another to build beyond the scope of the law will only put added stress onto the land. A home of this size will not fit in with the character of our neighborhood. It will add another house whose front yard will become a parking lot, and by allowing a possible higher occupancy for all future owners, it should not be allowed. I ask this board to please protect our property and to help us preserve it as it was originally intended. Much of Southampton town property is being preserved by the purchase of vacant property with CPF funds. I ask you to do the same. by not allowing
We're
homeowners.
we're not able to, the CPF program is a voluntary program,
know.
and a property owner has to,
I understand you have nothing to do with it, but you understand that the town of Southampton is trying to preserve as much property as possible for valid reasons, and that's what I'm asking you to do by not allowing homeowners the ability to override the laws and regulations that are in place to protect the residents. I want to continue to live in a peaceful and clean neighborhood, which only can be accomplished by restraining unwanted growth whenever and wherever possible. And I thank you for your time. If I can, I'd like to read my neighbor's letter as well. I have a notarized letter from him.
Sure.
To whom it may concern, this letter is meant to serve as a response to the hearing scheduled for Thursday, May 16th by the town of Southampton and a posted sign placed in front of 12 Nash Avenue. This is the first time I have ever written a letter to contest an application for relief from town codes. I say this to emphasize my sense of urgency in this matter. My husband Paul and I own a home at 17 Nash Avenue, which is across the street from the above-mentioned address. We hereby express our objection to the applications by the current owner of this property for relief from town codes for the principal front yard setback and additional order to build a second-story addition to this structure on a non-conforming lot. The proposed relief would present a clear mismatch for the proportionately smaller site the structure is situated on. In addition, such relief from the existing codes will adversely impact the small homes on our block as well as the surrounding area. It is therefore critical that our objections be taken into account as you reach your final decision on these applications. I wish to reiterate our position that the proposed relief to the town code needs to be unequivocally denied by the town of Southampton. Approval of such applications will have a radical and immediate impact on the nature of our distinctive Flanders community. Respectfully yours, Vicky Wojcik.
You want
And
to
she's
submit that to
17 Nash. Yes.
Just to make the record clear, that neighbor there is not a bordering neighbor of this property, is that correct?
Directly across the street from that house.
Bordering.
The two houses
And your
that
house
border-
doesn't border that
That's correct. The
property.
two houses that border, one is a rental, high occupancy rental, and the other one is for sale.
Okay. I just want to make the record clear.
What is the square footage of the existing house and the proposed house?
The existing square footage of the first floor is 1,029 square feet, and that is what the second floor is as well.
The
And
house is going to be 2,000 feet.
yes, and there will be an additional 7 feet added to what exists now. The ridge height is at 18 feet currently, 18 and some change, and the existing is 25 feet.
Yeah. And,
I mean, I'm sorry, the proposed is 25
well, I
feet.
just wanted to ask.
So how big are the other houses in the community?
The one directly to the west of it is still a small beach house, as she was saying, but as I said, the one to the east is a full 2-story, and the one across the street diagonally from it is another 2-story dwelling.
Big a lot.
Yeah, and this house is being raised for flood.
I don't know how Sandy impacted it the way it did, because the flood zone is a 6-foot elevation, a FEMA 6-foot flood zone. So you add the 2 feet to that, you get 8 feet. The existing first floor is at 9.4 feet. So you're already above the floodplain. If we were to do a substantial renovation, we would be required to go above the 8 feet, which we already are a foot above that.
Okay. All right. So I guess you just want us to deny the application. I understand, that's why you're here.
Yes, sir.
However, there could be, the agent for the applicant is here, and you're here, you could have a discussion as to whether there's anything that could be done other than denial of the application that might be helpful to you as a neighbor. And I'm not saying that because we're, leading in one direction or another, but it can't hurt to have a conversation if you're willing to have a conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think that the house is already a 3 or a 4-bedroom house, isn't it? 3-bedroom?
Yes, then it's very tiny to put that
I
many
don't
bedrooms.
understand why they would need a second house, a second story for so many more bedrooms. How many more bedrooms can?
We're not
a family
increasing the
use?
bedroom count.
You just-
We're making the bedrooms larger on the first floor and adding taking 2 from the first floor, putting them on the second floor to give them adequate space for each bedroom.
Yeah, yeah. And you.
Do they,
Yeah.
or Candace or Katie, do they need a is there any issue with parking here?
I was looking for that too when you said it.
But, yeah,
It doesn't show parking on the survey.
how many spaces do
You're
they need?
not adding bedrooms, all right?
No adding
Just
bedrooms.
enlarging and adding a couple upstairs.
Yeah, and we don't get many applications for 6,000 square foot
I think they have to show the parking on the survey, right?
Yeah. We really, we
No?
used to get more of them, and we don't
Have to
anymore.
Yeah.
apply.
Yeah. yeah. And so it's always a problem when the lots are this small.
Right.
Because it's not like you have a lot of room to maneuver
Right,
in a
and-
situation like this.
Right, as I said, we do not want to increase the square footage and the footprint of the house because that just takes away from his property and ultimately the neighbors. Like, I don't know anyone who would want to look at a house that takes up the entire property.
It almost does now. I mean, there's just barely enough room on one side for a car to come by, and on the other left side, there is no room for a car to come into a driveway, unless it's in front of the house.
Hence why we'd like to go up instead of going further onto
Right,
the
right.
lot.
And as Keith mentioned, for whatever, and I know you indicated the reasons, the neighbors who are really going to be the most impacted, the ones who are on both sides,
Right.
are not here and aren't opposing the application. But nevertheless,
They're moving.
it can, we can,
Right.
we can still have concerns about how would it be impacting them.
Absolutely.
Whether they oppose the application
Right.
or not.
So how many bedrooms are proposed? 3?
There are existing 4, we're proposing 4, but taking 2 from the first floor and moving them up to the second floor.
Right, so it needs 3 parking spaces, right, Candace? 2 per dwelling unit plus 1 additional for each. Right.
Okay.
So I wanted to ask if you would be willing to have a conversation outside, and we could second call, so you could have a conversation to see if anything amongst the things we're talking about could be, discussed and maybe some progress. Made.
Yes, I understand that, but I can't speak on that level for my client.
They're gonna have
I
to figure
think
out the
this is a
parking anyway, so it
conversation,
might take 'em-
yeah,
Okay.
this is a conversation he probably would need to have with you,
Okay.
and I can absolutely tell him.
Well,
everything.
the other thing we could do is we could keep it open and have you come back.
Okay.
I think for him, I can make sure he's here next time to address these issues.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment here. Are these the plans, the ones that you gave us that represent what the house is going to be?
Yes.
Okay, so if you look on these plans, there's only 1 bedroom on the first floor, according to these plans. And then there's 2 bedrooms and a loft on the second floor. So, I don't,
Okay, I'm sorry, yes, there's 3 bedrooms proposed.
there's 3 bedrooms.
So we're actually taking a bedroom out of the existing layout. 2 spaces.
You said that you were going to add 2 upstairs, though, and take out 1 downstairs or something, didn't you just say?
I'm sorry, I misspoke. There are 4 existing on the first floor as is. We are keeping 1, making it a master suite, and putting 2 bedrooms upstairs.
So it could be less bedroom.
It would be less bedrooms.
Well,
But large.
I don't know why there's a loft on the second floor, but,
Probably for storage, Mike.
Right, because there's no attic.
You know?
for lofting.
Flood zone.
Yeah.
Yes, he doesn't have an attic, extra storage. Like I said, he has grandchildren that will be visiting, that's
So that's an
playroom.
unfinished space, then?
No, it'll be finished, it's just not, it's open to below.
Yeah.
There's a basement?
There is a crawl space, and
2 foot.
Yeah.
the basement is this big.
It's like 2 foot, right?
Right.
Yeah,
2 foot high.
yeah, there's.
Yeah, not
it's
really a
It's on-
basement at all.
I think it sits on cinder block, that house.
Yeah.
My house.
Yep.
Yep.
Other question I have, I know you indicated that you had tried to minimize pyramid. I don't know whether there's any more that can be done. But, we're at,
Right.
almost 3,700 cubic feet. It is a tiny lot, and because it's such a tiny lot, even though, in other circumstances, if this were a bigger lot, that the relief wouldn't necessarily have that much of an impact. It really could. So I, want to ask if you could speak with the applicant about whether that number can be reduced.
It probably could, because we do have the loft upstairs. If we wanted to keep the 2 bedrooms, we could get rid of the dormers on the one side, which is creating the majority of the issue.
Yeah.
But this is definitely something we can look at with my client.
Yep.
Yeah, think about that, so maybe next time you come, you're ready.
Right.
I'm gonna sit down.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep. Okay. Is there anyone from the public who would like to be heard this evening in connection with the application of Perino for 12 Nash Road in Flanders? If not, Cornelius?
We're going to leave it open for all purposes. You're going to come back on June 6th.
June's, okay.
Second.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Mr. Hahn?
Aye.
Mr. Tudhill?
Aye.
Ms. Burgess?
Aye.
Mr. Daly? Mr. Sessa? Aye. Chair votes aye. We'll see you on June 6th. Also, just call on the day of, just to make sure, just in case there is an adjournment, to make sure it's on the agenda?
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Item 3 on the agenda is Melissa Schnapp Revocable Trust, 12 Port Elizabeth Drive in Hampton Bay, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-345-1-1. Applicant requests relief from the following provisions of the Town Code. 1, 330-11, Residential Districts Table of Dimensional Regulations for an accessory side yard setback of 8.2 feet, where 20 feet is required to legalize a barbecue constructed without the benefit of a building permit. 2, 330-11, for an accessory side yard setback of 3.8 feet, where 20 feet is required to legalize an outdoor shower constructed without the benefit of a building permit. 3, 330-76D, placement of accessory buildings, structures, and uses in all districts, and 330-83C, yards to allow the barbecue and outdoor shower to remain in the required minimum and total side yard of the principal building. 4, 330-77G, placement of accessory building structures and uses in residence districts to allow a setback of 5.6 feet, where 10 feet is required to legalize the location of pool equipment. And 5, 330-77G, to allow a setback of 5 feet plus or minus, where 10 feet is required to legalize the location of 2 air conditioning units on a non-conforming lot and any other relief necessary.
Board has jurisdiction.
Evening.
That's Keith.
Use myself in this application.
Catch your breath.
I shall, thank you.
Tara Hakimi from the Adam Miller Group, 2462 Main Street in Bridgehampton, New York. Good evening.
Good evening.
As Keith said, I'm here to present this application, property located at 12 Port Elizabeth Drive in Hampton Bays with a tax map of 900-341-1-1. The property is 14,700 square feet, and it's known as Parcel 1 of a minor subdivision, which was filed and recorded on June 19th of 1995. The property is pre-existing non-conforming. So our client purchased this property a few years ago. The structures were already there in all non-conforming locations.
Did they buy the property, did they have an attorney when they bought the property?
We believe it or not, we represented these clients when they purchased. And the survey that we received from the surveyor, none of these, the structures on the property were labeled. So that's something that we did take up with the surveyor at the time. Well, more recently when it was brought to our attention. So we are before the board now, on behalf of our clients, trying to get them relief for these items that were as built. So Keith already mentioned what they are, but I'm just going to mention the relief that we're seeking. So the barbecue is all been constructed, obviously, without the benefit of building permits, which you all know. The barbecue is 8.2 feet from the southerly property line where 20 is required. The outdoor shower also constructed without the benefit of a permit. 3.8 feet from the northerly property line where 20 is required as well. Pool equipment, 5.6 feet from the northerly property line where 10 is required. And the last are the 2 air conditioning units, which are 5 feet from the northerly property line. So we're just asking that these structures can remain where they are and where they've been for quite some time. And we've heard no objection on our application from any of the neighbors.
So I presume that your clients don't have any information as to how these structures went up by that, when they were put up, who put them up, or anything
No,
like
they
that?
they purchased the property and the structures were there when they purchased. They purchased the property in 2015.
All right. I asked the question because with as-built, we try to
Have to
find
ask.
out.
Yeah, of course.
We try to find out, and in some circumstances like this, well, there isn't anybody that we can ask, or at least get an answer.
Comes to public flogging.
Yeah.
Mr. Springer, can you tell you all about
Keith
public
insists that I ask these questions. I want you to know.
I don't mind. I'm happy to answer.
Okay. The one that's really close is the outdoor shower.
Yeah.
That one's pretty close.
Yep.
So I'm a little bit concerned about that impacting the neighbor. But we'll see if the neighbor's here. Have you heard from any of the neighbors?
I have not.
All right. Also, we did get comments from the building department. Number one, this is from Dennis Overbrook, Principal Building Inspector. Number one, the survey shall be revised to indicate the setback from the AC unit to the property line. 2, the survey associated with certificate of compliance number A060582 shows a pump house for the swimming pool in a conforming location. 3, the trellis is encroaching onto the property to the north of the subject premises. Therefore, the trellis shall be removed or relocated to a conforming location.
I meant to mention that we are going to remove the trellis.
Okay. Because we wouldn't be able to approve it if it goes over our property line anyway.
Yeah.
So it needs to be removed or moved to a conforming location.
Indicating the setback for the AC unit, we can do that, revise
Yep.
the survey to show that.
Yeah, I also couldn't find some other measurements on the survey. I couldn't find the 3.8 unless I missed it. 3.8
From
for,
the outdoor shower.
yeah. And I couldn't find the measurement for the air conditioning units. So unless I missed it,
There's an arrow says 5.6.
there is.
Above, yeah.
Right, which is a different measurement.
Oh, that's not the AC unit?
It's not the
That's
AC
not the-
unit.
Well, that's the
Yeah.
pool equipment.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
The AC are 5.4.
There's so much going on
There's
here.
the
Yeah.
arrows on the
Yeah.
outside.
Right,
There's
right.
not room for the end.
Yep, yep. But I couldn't find for the shower the actual measurement. 'cause
Okay,
we need all
we can
measurements.
revise, we
Yeah.
can revise to
Surveyor
show.
surveyor didn't do
Outdoor
what he was
shower.
supposed to do, and then he gave you guys up, too. How's that?
Outdoor shower and also the pool equipment.
Yep,
Okay.
okay, so that should resolve that issue. But otherwise, we like people to build things with permits. These are purchasers who, bought the property, and it was not information that was brought to their attention before they bought the property, so, which happens. The other thing, for what it's worth, the air conditioning units in particular, people often don't realize that you might need a permit for an air conditioning unit or a variance for an air conditioning unit that does not comply with the setbacks. As for the barbecue and the outdoor shower, well, yeah,
I think there might be a typo with the barbecue. All the other ones are there.
really? Okay, okay.
The union says to be removed for the trellis on the survey.
Yeah.
Yeah, trellis to be
You see
removed.
that,
Right,
right?
right, yeah, yeah. Yeah, as for the other structures, well,
Oh, yeah.
when in doubt, always go to the building department to ask. When in doubt, because it's, we have too many structures being built without permits, and it's not barbecues sometimes, it's like sometimes whole additions to houses, and even in rare occasions, whole houses. So, anyway, we don't want people to do these things. Okay, with all that having been said, any other questions from members of the board?
What is to the property to the northeast? Is that vacant?
Northeast.
Not the barbecue side, the pool equipment side. That looks vacant on the aerial.
I'm actually not sure. You have an aerial in front of you I can look at?
Just have to swear in, Kevin.
It looks weird.
I understand. Okay, if you can state your name and address.
Yeah, it
Kevin
is
Springer, 61 Channing Cross, Hampton Bays, New York.
And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Actually very familiar with this property as I've done several permits for Miss Melissa. And
I'm not sure if he's going to help you. Maybe you should stop.
no, that's fine. So the property to the north is vacant, okay? And it's as you can see, it's a very long, narrow piece, so there's not a lot of room. The grill is literally, it's maybe 4 feet high by 5 feet long. I don't see any reason why, I don't know about the air conditioning units though, and she mentioned about taking the trellises down long when we found out about this. So,
Thanks for your opinion. Appreciate it, Kevin.
Thank you for comments. Okay, is
Keep
there
that in
any?
the back of our mind for later.
Yes, yes. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to be heard this evening in connection with the application of the Melissa Schnapp Revocable Trust dated 10/11/12? This is for 12 Port Elizabeth Drive in Hampton Bays. If not, Keith.
You waiting on anything, Candace? Okay. Well, why don't we do this? I'll make a motion to close the public hearing, leaving it open for written submissions, that being the Conservation Board report. And when's the next time they meet?
I do not know.
Okay, we'll leave it out, we'll put it out there for a determination for What's the second meeting in June?
6:20.
6:20.
Second?
You okay with that?
So I'll have, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'll have the survey revised and resubmitted before then.
Yes, so
Yeah, right,
for Conservation Board written
And,
subs. as
and
well
the
as
survey,
revised
updated survey.
Yes, yes, okay. Mr. Tudhill.
Aye.
Mr. Hahn.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and Mr. Assessor recused himself, so he abstains. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Take care.
Thank you. Item 4 on the agenda, Marla and Michael Rothstein, 43 Tiana Circle, Hampton Bays, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-345-2-1. Applicant requests relief from the following provisions of the Town Code. 1, for the proposed swimming pool on a non-conforming lot. 330-11, Residential Districts Table of Dimensional Regulations, for an accessory front yard setback of 66.6 feet, where 70 feet is required from the westerly lot line, Diana Bay, and an accessory front yard setback of 20.1 feet, where 70 feet is required from the northerly lot line, Elder Avenue. And 2, 330-76D, placement of accessory building structures and uses in all districts, and 330-83C yards, to allow the swimming pool to be located in the required front yard of the principal dwelling, and 2, for the proposed two-story dwelling, 330-83K yards for a proposed rear yard setback of 22.1 feet where 35 feet is permitted on a non-conforming lot and any other relief necessary.
Board has jurisdiction.
Good evening, set this right in.
Kevin W. Springer, 61 Channing Cross, Hampton Bays, New York.
And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the
I do.
truth? Okay, you can tell us about the application.
Yes. Okay, well, first thing as you notice is obviously we're non-conforming, but we also have several front yards. Elder Avenue, Tiana, and Tiana Bay, which is what is causing some of this confusion here on the relief that we technically need. If you can see on the survey that we've taken the house, the proposed house, and moved it much forward from the water, because of obviously where it was sitting, and it's too close to the water. Haven't had a flood issue yet, but it's coming close. For the pool, the pool is obviously a small pool, 15 by 22 by pool standards, in my opinion. And we really don't have a lot of spots to put it, and thus not making it very big either. This layout, I spent many meetings with Marty Shea to try and get a good positioning for him to like, and then also so that we wouldn't be asking for a ton of relief. House is not very big. There's not a lot going on. We would try to keep the pool away from the neighbors and closer to that's why it's onto this side. We originally had the balcony and switched, but because this is a road which is a dead end, we just figured that was the easiest place. And that's it. That's really the only things we...
So it looks like you're putting the pool where the existing house is.
Yes, and actually a little bit towards the front of where
You'd
the
like
existing
to put
house.
the pool, yeah.
Yeah.
And,
Go ahead, Adam.
go ahead. Mike, you had another question?
No.
No? Okay. So when you have a circumstance like this with essentially 3 front yards, you have severe limitations. And that is what largely creates this set of circumstances. I don't know that it would be possible to put a pool on this property in a conforming location. It would be a real challenge.
Well, if you slid the pool to touch the porch and the balcony, you'd
Well, we have to have a minimum 5 feet, which is basically what we're at.
well, if you connect them.
Yeah, but it doesn't give you a whole lot of room to sit. I mean, we're only going to gain technically 5 feet.
Yeah, but if you gain 5 feet, then you no longer need a front yard setback. Because you're at 66 feet, which is 70.
Make us 71.
I'm just saying, I'm not saying no to the pool.
No, I understand.
In terms of
I
minimal
see
relief,
where
if it
I see where
slides
you're
in
going
there,
with it.
And then if the side, then that other 20 feet now becomes,
Well,
you know.
that may bring it in, because as it comes in, unless we repositioned it just a hair. I mean, it's possible, but,
if the other members, if we can reduce a variance, that would be my
no, I
preference.
understand.
Because
Yeah, I'm
that's-
fine with the
We're
conflict.
4 feet, so what do we,
Right.
you have room to move it 4 feet.
Well, I'm just not 100% sure. If we move it 4 feet, is it going to be out of the front yard? I'm just not 100% sure of that.
Well, it would be, because on this one,
Yeah.
the 66 would become 70.
Okay.
So that would relieve the first variance of 66 where 70 is required. It would
The-
reduce.
Right, as long
the
as,
setback.
as
I'm
long as
talking
that
about the
space
pool being
between the
front
Oh,
yard.
no,
porch and the pool.
I think because it's 3 fronts, it's still going to be in the front, but
Yeah,
if we can
yeah.
get rid of
Yeah, one of the.
one or more of the
setback.
others.
Yeah, relief. items. Okay, okay. All right, so.
I have not
one
heard from
suggestion.
any of the neighbors. No. I know that the board has done very many pools in front yards, because
Yeah.
I've received quite a few of them, but.
Yeah. Yeah, and the relief for the house is from rear yard setback, so it is, what's the,
Well, 35 is required, and we're at 22.
to 22.1,
Which,
but,
But it's to the, opposite the water, so we want you to.
yeah, well, that's
Exactly,
what Marty was
exactly. That's
requesting.
where I was going.
Try and push this whole thing as forward as possible.
Yeah, yeah.
How big is the house?
Not very big, about 2,100 square feet.
First and second floor total?
Yeah, it's not a big house.
It's a modest-sized house,
Yeah.
to leave room for other things. I think if you just slide that over, yeah. That's what I would look for.
I can, of course, ask them.
Okay, any other questions from members of the board? Is there anyone from the public who would like to be heard this evening in connection with the application of Rothstein? This is for 43, I believe it is, Tiana Circle in Hampton Bays. If not, Helen?
Candace, are we expecting any,
Conservation board on this one also.
Okay.
we're getting a new survey?
Well, this is fairly new, but yeah, if we do the change, I will get you a new survey.
I would hope
The
that.
survey is in the process of being updated anyway, because we will be doing the new IA systems for conservation and whatnot.
So considering that we're going to have the conservation,
Well, I don't think I'm going to have conservation, because even if I get him the new survey with the septic on it, I mean, today's Thursday, so if I get it to him next week, it's still going to be a couple weeks out, so I think we probably would need 2 meetings.
so I think by 6:20, would that be acceptable?
Yep.
Okay, so we'll close the public hearing. We'll have our written submissions, and we have a date for a decision on 6:20.
Second.
Ms. Burgess?
Aye.
Mr. DeSessa?
Aye.
Mr. Daly?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Mr. Tudhill? Mr. Hahn? Aye. Chair votes aye. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I'll stay. Jason's going to like this one.
Doris Olson, 17 Kyle Road, in Hampton Bays, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-265-5-29. This is item 5 on the agenda. Applicant requests relief from the following provisions of the Town Code, 330-115D2, continuance for a principal rear yard setback of 42.8 feet where 45 feet is permitted to legalize an addition to the existing dwelling. I guess it was built without the benefit of a building permit. 2, 330-11 residential districts table of dimensional regulations for an accessory side yard setback of 9.9 feet where 10 feet is required to legalize the outdoor shower that was constructed without the benefit of a building permit. And 3, 330-76D, placement of accessory building structures and uses in all districts. And 330-83C, yards to allow the outdoor shower to remain within the required side yard of the principal dwelling on a non-conforming lot and the relief necessary.
Board has jurisdiction?
Good evening. Set to swear you in. State your name and address.
7W Springer, 61 Channing Cross, Hampton Bays, New York.
And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Okay, so it's funny how I mentioned about as-built
Yeah,
additions
well,
to residences before.
I knew my time was
What a
coming.
coincidence.
So obviously now, normally this would be a minor variance, but that's not going to happen since we are built without the benefit. This was built by the father, who is since deceased. This addition was put on back in about approximately 1986, which is about 30 years ago.
The sunroom we're talking about.
What's that?
The sunroom or the whole?
This whole piece here was a ranch house, and then this piece here was added on without the benefit.
Father Charlie Olson?
No, I know you're thinking about it. So, as there was originally in the trust of all the sisters, that became an issue. Now 2 of the sisters own it. They live in Connecticut, and the father is deceased. So, if you're going to flog somebody, it might as well be me. Other than that, though, I mean, we're very minor, very consistent with the neighborhood. The house next door at 19 is literally 2.5 feet difference. They're at the 45 mark. I have heard from the neighbors at 16 and 19. They're both okay with it. And the neighbor at 24, Staller, who is the northern property behind her. And they were all good. They just were concerned that we were adding on to the house. And I told them no, that we were going to, just trying to legalize. This all came about because this would be the 4th house on this road that I've come to where was no pre-existing CO. So the pluses are is we did put a new septic system in this winter, and there's really not much else to say.
So we have another circumstance where the person isn't around. If you can tell us how this happened.
No.
All right. Do we have in the file anything in terms of a cost to remove the nonconformities to show the financial impact? Should the relief be denied? Not that we're going there, but
I'm sure I could get one if needed be.
I think it probably would
It's needed.
not be a bad idea.
Come on, you see us enough here. You're here every month. You know we need this.
We also need the single and separate search for
And
you
single and
guys.
separate search.
We do.
You should have that.
We have it, but it needs to be revised.
Doesn't have your
Let me
property
tell you
owner as
what.
the owner.
Oh, because of the sale from the trust to the sisters. I'm assuming that's what that's for.
Yeah, it was dated October
Current
5th,
deed.
2018, and they want current deed information on the single and separate.
Well, we want the current owner reflected on the single and separate search.
Right. This is from Dennis. I'll read the whole thing. The single and separate search shall be updated to verify compliance with Town Code 33115D. The single and separate search dated October 5th, 2018, which was submitted with the application, does not include the current deed information for the subject premises. So we'd like it updated.
That's fine.
All right. And, the good news, 10 feet to 9.9 feet, I'm not sweating that one. And, overall, the relief, I think, we'll see if there's anybody here, is, relatively modest under the circumstances. When people build things without permits, since we're on the subject tonight, it's the theme, I guess, they take the risk that if it has a significant impact on the neighbors, we may not grant relief. And if that's the case, they may have to remove, the property owner may have to remove the structures. So that's the risk that occurs when you're dealing with as-bills.
For the record, 36 and 38 Kyle Road were both given variances in 88 for a 40-foot rear yard setback. So again, it's with the neighborhood, it's
Well, and I understand, sometimes people will need relief. This is a lot that's, a little less than 12,000 square feet. Sometimes it has to do with, what's there currently, how it's positioned on the property, the topography sometimes of the property, can be any of a number of things. But in any case, we just want people to get permits for what they're, and if there's any doubt, go and ask, please. All right. Any other questions from members of the board? Is there anyone from the public who would like to be heard this evening in connection with the application of Olson? This is for 17 Kyle Road in Hampton Bays. If not, Brian.
Okay, so, move that we close the public hearing, leaving it open for written submissions, that being the cost estimate to remove the as-built, and also the proper single and separate
Have
information.
them both next week.
Okay. We can then have a decision. We have those next week, we'll shoot for 6/6, is my motion.
Mr. DeSessa.
Aye.
Mr. Hahn.
Aye.
Mr. Tudhill.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. You too.
All right, Keith, good luck. Item 6 on the agenda. Francesca Carolyn Abrasiamento, 57 Chestnut Street, Noyak. If I didn't say it right, I apologize. Suffolk County Tax Map 900-5-5-26. Applicant requests relief from the following provisions of the Town Code. 1, 330-84E, pyramid height for an encroachment in the amount of 338 cubic feet for a proposed two-story dwelling. 2, 330-11, residential districts table of dimensional regulations for an accessory distance from the street setback of 19.9 feet from Briar Lane where 40 feet is required for a proposed swimming pool. And 330-84D for an encroachment in the amount of 580 cubic feet for the reconfiguration of the existing garage on a non-conforming lot and any other relief necessary.
Board has jurisdiction. Pass this to Michael.
Good evening. I said swear you in unless you're attorneys. No one's an attorney? Okay. All right, so you can just state your name and address, or we can take turns, or...
Jeff Sands, 6 Evergreen Lane, East Quogue.
And you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, and ma'am?
Katie Osiki, 146 Kings Point Road, East Hampton, New York, 11937.
Okay, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you. Can you tell us about the application?
So we're asking for 3 variances. There is a new plan, which you guys got. Okay. So it actually decreases the pyramid relief. It's actually 245 cubic feet. So the existing house has pre-existing setbacks from Briar Lane as well as Chestnut.
Sorry? Is there an original, I'm sorry, is there an original stamp?
Yep, it's with the affidavit of posting.
Okay, I already got it, okay, sorry. Okay.
No problem. So the existing house is a 1-story residence. There's pre-existing setbacks, 7 feet from Briar Lane and 14.6 from Chestnut. We're proposing a 2-story house, but we will be moving the house further back from the road. On Briar Lane, it will be 14.9, and on Chestnut Street, it will be 16.7. So the pyramid variance is on Briar Lane. It's 245 cubic feet. The second variance is for the garage, which is pre-existing, and we're actually reducing the existing pyramid by 55 cubic feet, so it's just getting smaller. And the third variance is for a swimming pool in the front yard. There are 2 front yards on this property. The conforming location pushes the pool, so it would be 8 feet away from the neighbor. By allowing it in the front yard, we can move it 12.7 feet away. We do have 2 letters of support from neighbors, as well as 1 from down the street, and the neighbor who's going to be affected by the pool is okay with it. We were proposing a, I believe, 6-foot tall evergreens, and he would prefer 4 feet because of the way the sun comes in. So he wants them actually smaller.
What did you say the new pyramid was for the garage?
The garage is staying the same. It's 55. I believe that was part of the original application.
55 is reduced.
Yes, we're getting smaller.
Right. So the pyramid relief that we have to grant is 580.
Oh, from the overall,
The
yes.
overall.
Yep, sorry.
Yep.
Okay.
And the new house, Katie's 245.
I got 245. I still don't understand what the garage is.
So the...
Did you say it
on the
was reduced
notice-
55, or did you say it was 580?
No, it's currently 635, and they're reducing it to 580.
Okay, 580 is what's advertised.
Oh, okay, so then that's the same. That didn't change. It was just the house that got smaller.
Okay.
And I do have
And the setback remains the same, 40 to 19.9?
for the, yes. It was just the grade
Yeah.
calculation changed slightly, so that's why the pyramid on the house changed.
Modest pyramid relief. Setback relief, it's, 50%. 40 to 19.9.
So is this the right site plan?
Yes.
Reflecting
Yes.
the things that you just said have changed? Okay.
And if you want, if it's, I do have, it's unfortunately, sorry, it's not to scale, but what the existing looks like. I don't know if that's,
You can submit it if you like.
So this one that we had is no longer valid, that said 338.
yes.
So we had some comments from the building department.
Yeah, we do.
I've been doing this until now, I think I use my glasses now. All right, this is from Dennis O'Rourke, our Principal Building Inspector. 1, the setback relief requested in the application for the driveway gate is not necessary as town, maybe that was eliminated, as Town Code 330-362A5A, special standards for accessory driveway structures requires that a driveway structure be no closer than 20 feet to the edge of the public or private road surface when an improvement such as a residential dwelling is located at or beyond 150 feet from the edge of the public or private road surface. 2, the volume of pyramid encroachment shall be revised. He wants to make sure that it is calculated correctly. Method of determining both the height of the structure and the method delineating the sky plane from each lot is as follows: determining the average natural grade elevation prior to disturbance using NAVD 1988 by indicating spot elevations taken at the corners along the side of the facade wall of the proposed dwelling adjacent to the nearest street on the survey, and B, the architect or New York State licensed design professional shall calculate the average using the spot elevations as stated and draw the pyramid line from all property lines using the grade plane as applied to the subject structures on the lot. Note, this average elevation and the setbacks from the property line must be indicated on the pyramid drawing. This method will establish a grade plane and form the basis of for calculating the volume of encroachment. The applicant shall submit this information in order to verify the accuracy of the diagram and pyramid calculations. So he wants to just make sure that the numbers are correct.
And that's why
for
the
pyramid.
number reduced.
Yep, okay. All right. And the comment about the driveway gate, I did not see that as part of what was advertised and as part of the relief that's requested. So I think that was already addressed. And that's it.
So you're changing the orientation of the garage from coming off Briar to coming off Chestnut. Is that right?
Correct.
Going to remove all those chestnut trees.
Yeah. And the only relief that's of significance is the relief from Briar Lane. And so it's Briar Lane, not an adjacent property. So it's 40 feet to 19.9. So, you know, with that and what is, I guess, an existing, it looks like, is it fence or screening? I'm not sure. Proposed hedge?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. All right.
And we do have a letter of support from that, the neighbor directly across, which was 3 Pine Road.
Okay.
They were fine with that.
All right. So that's the only, relief that's of some significance, but I think it would be hard to argue that it would really have a significant negative impact on our neighbor. Okay. Any other questions or members of the board? Is there anyone from the public who would like to be heard this evening in connection with the application of Abra Cimento? If not, Mike.
Okay, what are we waiting for anything? You've redone the pyramid calculations?
Yeah, that's the new drawings that we
Okay.
submitted today.
All right. Good, we'll close this public hearing for all purposes, and we'll have a decision for you on the 6th of June.
Second.
Mr. Daly?
Aye.
Mr. Hahn?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Burgess? Mr. Tuthill?
Aye.
Mr. DeSessa?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you for being here. Have a good night.
Can you pass these to Michael to
Can
add?
I ask you a question?
Sure.
Why do you go in that order?
Oh, you mean when
Yeah.
I do the vote? It's, well, I do the person who makes the motion and the second go first. Yeah. Have a good night.
You too.
Bye.
Hello.
Oh,
How are
thanks.
you?
That's for the file.
Am I notarizing something?
Get to make a stamp.
Pleasure.
Yep.
Just the posting, or we already have them mailing you? I know, I'm just looking, do we have the mailing, or Richard's gonna give that to you too?
All right, item 7 on the agenda, this is a re-advertised application. Bill Bittis and Stephanie Bittis, 65 Bayview Drive West, in Noyak, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-16-2-30. Get my glasses back on. Applicant requests relief from the following provisions of the Town Code, 330-11, Residential Districts Table of Dimensional Regulations, for a principal rear yard setback of 36 feet where 60 feet is required, and a principal minimum side yard setback of 16.1 feet where 20 feet is required for a proposed one-story addition. 2, 330-76D, placement of accessory buildings, structures, and uses in all districts in 330-83C yards, to allow a proposed deck to be located within the required minimum side yard for the principal building. And 3, 330-11 for an accessory front yard setback of 40.1 feet where 50 feet is required for a proposed patio with trellis on a non-conforming lot and any other relief necessary.
The board has jurisdiction, but Richard is going to get me the original.
Mailing receipts.
Mailing, the mailing, I mean, I have a copy of it, or fax, but I eventually would like the original, por favor.
As soon as I can find them, I seem to have misplaced
All
them.
right, just do it later. Pass that to Brian, please.
Thank you.
Okay, good evening.
Mr. Grossman, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of the board, my name is Richard Matthew. I'm an attorney with an office here in Southampton at 295 North Sea Road. I presented this application to you previously. Mr. Daly wasn't here. Just in a nutshell, we're looking for in addition to a single-family dwelling in Noyak, the Sag Harbor area in Noyak, we require 2 variances for the rear yard. The property is small, it's substandard for the area, for the zoning district. It is suffers or benefits from, depending on how you look at it, 2 front yards. And there was a house on it that already benefited from 4/10 relief, and which takes the side yard, or rear yard actually, down to 20 feet, and we're going for 16, excuse me. And then we have a 36 on the southerly side of the property. We presented the application, we had closed the application because we thought we presented all the information that you required. We were confronted with objectants who noticed that there was a proposal for a retaining wall on the property, which did not have anything to do with regard to the structure, but was for a proposed trellis and patio, which met the setback as we had proposed it. In response to the objectants' concerns, we revised the plan and submitted a new survey and a new application requesting that the board reopen the application and allow us to re-advertise to seek variances for the trellis and patio, which was reconfigured so as to eliminate the retaining wall on the adjoining neighbor property and put it 20 feet or approximately 20 feet from their property. As a result of doing that, and we've shown that on the survey, we had originally proposed the trellis to be in a north-south configuration. Doing so required the retaining wall where the objectants were aggrieved. So we moved it. Now it's in an east-west configuration. It doesn't impact on their property, but it does require variances. And I think that's as fast as I can say it.
Okay.
The house stayed the same, right?
House stayed the same. There's no change at all. There was no change with there was no issue with regard to the house. The objectants didn't mind the house. It was the retaining wall that was their concern. We made a representation to the board and to the neighbors that we would adjust that. It took a little bit longer than I thought that it would.
Okay.
But we would stand by the representation made before you previously that we would rectify it. We have rectified it. We have attempted to be good neighbors. This is a picture of what the trellis in question looks like. It's open air. It does not provide habitation for, I just read a case in Shelter Island, Harbor, that a structure was required, called a building if it afforded shelter for humans, animals, or chattels. This does none of the above. Mm-hmm. So our issue is, in attempting to be good neighbors, we've now come into a situation where we need new variances, and we've been attacked, beset by the neighbors.
Going to give this to our attorney. Have these already been submitted, these photos?
They've not.
Okay.
I just was handed them this evening.
Okay.
So I'd like to stick with a good deed and continue with the application as presented. And I'm willing to answer any questions. I have with me David Sherwood, the architect for the project, and my clients, if you have any questions for them.
So what are these? What are these for? What are these for?
That's the neighbors responded to our attempt to rectify the situation by installing security cameras, fences, no trespassing signs.
Okay.
So is that the neighbor's submission? Really?
That's my submission on behalf.
I'm confused. Okay.
My submission on behalf of what the wages of sin. We tried to do the right thing, and that's the response that we're getting.
All right.
Hear from the neighbors.
Okay.
I'm sure you will.
Okay. But before we do that, Mr. Sherwood, do you want to, do you have anything you want to add, or can I?
I've been
swear you
sworn in
in?
yet, so-
And state your name and address.
David Sherwood, 4 First Street, Sag Harbor, New York.
And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. So if you can tell us, from your perspective, about the changes.
As Mr. Matthews said, the house itself, the additions to the house haven't changed since the prior submission. The retaining walls, which, as of right, typically we're allowed to have up to a 4-foot retaining wall, I believe at grade, at the property line. We were starting off with that supposition where we had the first 4-foot retaining wall, and then a planting bed, and then a second 4-foot retaining wall. In an attempt to, give the neighbors some peace of mind. There were a couple trees that are really on the line, and there was concern that the wall, if installed where it was, might damage the roots of the trees and therefore compromise the life and the longevity of the tree. So we agreed to move the first retaining wall 10 feet off the property line, which then brought our second retaining wall, that much further or closer to the house, which is what, required the rotation of the arbor and the second variance. So.
All right, thank you. Any questions from members of the board? Is there anyone from the public who'd like to be heard this evening in connection with the application of Bittis? This is for 65 Bayview Drive West in Noyak.
Hi.
Good evening.
Good evening.
And I know this was closed and open, so if anyone was sworn in already, let me know, because I don't have to swear you in
no.
again.
I was
Oh, you weren't? You were sworn in? Okay.
I was last, 2 months ago.
Okay.
Just state your name.
State your name.
Kendra Weatherall.
Okay, all right. And if you can tell us your comments this evening.
Okay. Yes, when last time we were here, we were worried about the retaining wall that was needed in order for the variance application, and we wanted to know what exactly are the walls made out of, and if there's going to be dead men, or what was going to be used, because last time we were here, we wanted not only just a survey, but we wanted the engineering report with the footings, so we see how deep they're going to be cutting in because of the roots going deep down.
That's going to be a building department question.
Okay.
Only because they're not asking for relief on the walls. And if the wall's less than 4 feet, there's different standards in the building department.
Okay.
But that's a construction issue and a permit issue. That's not a variance issue, so we're not able to
comment.
Right.
So I know you might not be able to answer
Yeah.
this, but I'm going to ask anyway.
Yeah. I mean, if they know the answer,
So, yeah.
Sherwood can answer, but
Of course.
for us, it's not germane to the application.
Yeah.
Because
It just, our concern were with the trees last time, and in response to that, our neighbors decided, after the last meeting, to cut down one of our trees on our property. Hence why we had put, from what we were told and suggested by, was to put up a fence on our property line. And because of the cut down of our trees on our side of the property, we installed cameras on the fence so we can monitor who's going onto our property. The property's on an incline, a very steep incline, so I am just very worried about the runoff and everything that's going to happen with the retaining
their own rainwater.
Yeah, that's what the code requires.
Code requires them to contain their own rainwater runoff.
But now the retaining walls have been removed, right? And
No, it's relocated away
Relocated,
from the
relocated.
common border line, but they're uphill in any event.
Yeah.
So it would come the other way.
Yeah. And as far as the trees being cut down goes, that is a civil issue?
So again, like
Between
with
you
them
and-
complaining with the signs and everything,
Has no effect on
has no effect, exactly.
Well, the
That's
signs
your
of the
fencing
tree
restrictions?
don't concern.
Yes,
How high is that thing?
about 4 feet. It's a 4 feet chicken wire.
Anything else you'd like? to
Anything on
tell
the
us?
application?
Anything on the application? I haven't seen the application, to be honest. I know one of the application questions is how does it affect, like, the community? And I believe this is going to affect the community with the potential, but you said it's a building department issue, which I
No,
can't.
the wall, not the variance.
Not the variance, but the walls that are needed
Right.
in order to complete everything. So I'm just worried that if it is proved that there's going to be damage to my property or my family's property because of the runoff and rain and everything.
But
If they cut into the roots too far, because if the roots are damaged and the trees die and they fall, then there's not enough. If there's like another hurricane, like a hurricane or anything, there's going to be too much water, and there's not any roots to soak all that up. So, could I go to the Conservation Society? Like, what can I do?
Well, if you think there's an issue with
Water
water
drainage,
going
it's
onto
code
onto the
enforcement or
property,
building department.
that is something you would report to code enforcement.
Okay. Okay.
Do you have any issue with the pergola or the house, or any position on that?
No.
If you have no objection to the pergola or the house, that's the request here.
Like the trellis?
Yeah, the trellis, not
Trellis,
call it
yeah.
pergola.
Sorry, I'm not very well versed.
No, interchangeable words.
Yeah. No, we don't object to them wanting to extend their property as long as it doesn't hurt us and our property.
But you're concerned about the retaining wall.
I'm really, yes, I am very much concerned about the damage that's going to cause to our planet. And apparently one of our trees is down already, so. The future of this community.
So you could ask him when you step out. 'Cause
I don't know what happened to the tree, but I
No,
can
not the
certainly
tree, I
talk
meant
to
the
you
wall.
about the
Yeah, I would like to
construction
know
of the wall.
everything about the wall.
We met with, what was his name?
Tom Conklin.
Yeah, Tom Conklin, the landscaper, to talk specifically about the construction of the wall and how it could be moved off the property line and the dead men shortened in place so that they don't go anywhere near the trees. I mean, there's 3 trees that we're talking about on the line, and we can very easily avoid them.
Okay.
Just in
So
the
how
construction.
far are you cutting down deep into the ground?
4 feet?
Just 4 feet?
Yeah, 4 feet
You're not gonna
level
go
and
any-
then 4 feet again. Yeah.
So you're not going any deeper, you're not putting
No.
anything else?
And it sounds
So-
to me like the intention is to try to not harm the trees.
Right.
So
Yeah, and actually to
hopefully-
reconfigure everything, I mean, it does sound like the neighbors, that the applicants tried to address your concerns, and if it's moved so far back, it sounds like there's a good faith effort to address your
So, sorry, what happens? Like, is there gonna be someone from the town of Southampton monitoring this? Like, so that there is no damage? What happens if there is damage? Like, I wanna know if everything goes fine with what you're planning to do, and it is successful, what happens if something does
Well,
occur?
If there's an issue.
Yeah.
If there's an issue, you go to the building department, you go to code enforcement. Now, if
I'm sorry,
if-
I'm not well versed.
that's okay. If the application is approved, then these changes are going to occur on the property. And if any point along the way, while the work is being done, you think that is not being done pursuant to an approval, whether it be from our board or from the building department, you report that.
Okay.
Hopefully, none of that will happen.
May I?
Yes.
At the last meeting, we were given by Ms. Weatherall a copy of a letter from Thomas Conklin, who's a landscaper, who suggested that a 10-foot separation from retaining wall to the property line would be appropriate to take care of the trees on the Weatherall property. I submit a copy of that letter showing that it's 10 feet and and our survey indicates that we've moved the wall 10 feet. So we've complied.
Thank you for complying.
I think my dad might have a
Sure,
question.
yeah, come on up.
Yeah. Okay.
Stand at the podium if you'd like.
Or we can get your chair.
Or
Can I have mine?
Sure.
Okay, you can have a seat.
You can have
Okay.
Richard.
And did I previously swear you in?
No.
I did not.
Bruce.
Okay. You can state your name and address.
Bruce Weatherill, 41 Treadwell Lane, Sag Harbor, New York.
And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the
I
truth?
do.
Okay, Bruce, if you can
Okay,
give
I
us your
think-
comments.
No, we have no objection to their putting their addition on. I hope they get it, have a happy, healthy life in it, whatever. That's all. I wish them the best, because they need more room. But our concerns is an environmental issue. Now, when it comes to people who say they're going to do this, that, or the other thing, you got to look at their record. And their property has been considered to Southampton Town 100% over the years. Now, the reason why our concern is that I don't want to look at a retaining wall that's 4 foot, but I'm not sure if that was with footings or no footings. Footings weren't even mentioned. But they submitted some pictures of the fence and whatever. Well, while putting up this fence, I noticed that there's a half a dozen trees cut down on my property. The same exact time they cut trees down on their property. So the reason I have concerns about whether or not they're environmentally friendly is so far I haven't seen any proof of that, considering that they can encroach on my property and cut trees down.
And then we are over there.
And if they can cut down trees and I even say, geez, I'm sorry, my landscaper made a mistake, which would be understandable, failed to mention this. Now, Valley Road, that one of their front yards is on town property, over the years now has been, all their shrubs and whatever else has been cleared. So this is why we have an issue of whether or not these people are environmentally friendly. I know there might be oak trees, whatever, but they're still my trees, they're still my property, and so far they, according to their environmental record, they haven't been very good friendly neighbors, when they couldn't even say, geez, we were cutting trees down that they weren't supposed to be doing on their property to begin with, because it's against town code, but they did mine. They've already overcleared the land. So I just want to make sure that I don't want to see a retaining wall.
It's not about seeing.
We just
I
don't
don't
want
want
to
the trees
see, I don't want
on
to
our
see
property
it.
to come down, because
And
then
I don't
we're
want to have
going to be
any
written up for overclearing
effect.
when it's not our duty.
Well, nobody's supposed to go onto someone else's property and cut down the trees.
In theory,
okay?
that's not supposed to happen.
And there's the court system to deal with that if necessary.
I'm just saying, for the record, where they stand from where they sit. We were supposed to get a copy with a survey of what they were going to do, remove the retaining wall, and their attorney said, oh, not a problem, all I got to do is draw a line. Well, we've never saw that line. When we were last here, he said, all I have to do is have a line drawn on the survey showing 10 feet away where the retaining wall was. You called up and you didn't get that, did you?
You have a copy of the survey now?
We got the copy
Oh,
of
you
the
finally
survey.
got it.
We just didn't
it.
get the copy of the engineering report saying where the footings are going to be.
Okay.
We never received that, and we asked for that last meeting.
Okay, that's all I got to say.
Okay.
And that's what I want to show my architect.
Okay, well, I'm getting, I understand that you're concerned, and I appreciate that. I'm getting from the attorney for the applicant and the architect for the applicant that they're trying to not be harming trees. As to an issue with trees being cut down, that is between you and them to work out.
Right, I'm just...
Okay, we have no ability to do anything about that. All I can say is they're not supposed to do it, and there is legal recourse.
Yes, I know that.
Yeah, okay. But I do appreciate your comments, and I had hoped that there would be an understanding between the neighbors.
I hope
I'd probably more understand the importance of this retaining wall if I were to see the engineering report showing where the footings are going exactly. That's what I requested last time, and I did not receive that. I went to Candace, my mom and my sister went to Candace all week looking for them, and they were not submitted. So I believe they should be going together. If you're going to be building a retaining wall, I think the footing should be submitted as well to us.
They'll be submitted with the building permit. They're not going to be submitted to the zoning board, particularly since it's been moved, and the testimony is that Mr. Conklin said the 10 feet would be appropriate, and it looks like it's 10 feet. So, I mean, they will be submitted with the building department, but they're not part of the ZBA application.
So would I be able to see that at the building department?
Yes.
Yes.
So I can go there tomorrow and ask?
If it-
I don't know
when it's been
when
filed.
they file a building.
We need the
permit.
variance before we can
Or,
apply for it.
okay,
Correct.
in
Yes.
theory, if it were already submitted.
Correct,
But just
yes.
for the record, it's a 6x6 timber retaining wall, so there's no, it's not like a concrete foundation where there would be footings. I mean, the timbers are self-supporting and they have deadmen, so there's no footing per se.
Okay.
But in any case, there will be a document for you to look at,
Eventually.
showing what's going to be going on. Okay, but just not in our file now. Yeah, and it won't be in our file, it'll be in the building department file, and maybe, might be possible to, let the neighbor know when that document's filed.
That would be lovely.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate your comments. Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to be heard this evening in connection with the application of Bittis?
Okay, seeing or hearing no one, I move that we close the public hearing with a determination on 6/6. Second.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, did you have anything else to say, Mr. Matthews?
We didn't cut any trees.
Okay.
Okay. All right, Mr. DeSessa.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Mr. Hahn.
Aye.
We didn't mean to cut
Tuthill.
you off.
Aye.
And Ms. Burgess.
They're fattening.
Chair votes aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night. Yeah.
6-6.
You want to take a break early? Do we want, it's kind of early.
We can continue. We can
Do we
continue.
want to keep continue, or do we want to break?
Either way. Let's
You don't want to do one more?
One more.
One more.
One more? One more.
The consensus is to do one more.
Wanted to start the time.
Just one more.
Yeah.
I went through that drink. Oh, God, here they come.
Mr. Tuttle.
Yes, sir.
Let's go.
Okay.
Number 8.
Kevin Mance and Janet Roast Mance. 570 Lumber Lane in Bridgehampton, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-51-1-20.1. On May 16, 2013, by decision number D013185, this board granted the applicant's variance relief for an addition to an existing shed and relief for the conversion of a barn into an accessory apartment. The relief that was granted was conditioned on the applicants and/or future owners of subject property removing the second driveway for the inhabitants of the existing accessory apartment within 1 year of the date of the decision. That's when it was supposed to be done. And obtaining all required approvals for parking for the existing accessory apartment from Southampton Town Building Department. By letter dated April 10, 2019, Kevin Mance has requested the board modify said decision to allow the second driveway to remain in its current location. The application was reopened and is being advertised for further discussion.
Board has jurisdiction. You pass that to Adam.
Good evening. All right, so, I believe you guys, you were both previously sworn in? Were you both previously sworn in?
Yeah, just do it again.
I'll do it again.
Reopening
Okay,
purposes.
if you can state your name and address.
Hi, Kevin Mance, 570 Lumber Lane, Bridgehampton, New York.
Okay, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and ma'am?
Mary Olstrom, 570 Lumber Lane.
And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Mary.
Alstrom.
Alstrom, A-H-L-S-T-R-O-M.
A-H-L-S-T-R-O-M.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so you can tell us why where we are tonight.
Well, we notified all the neighbors.
Okay.
I've not heard from any of the neighbors. I spoke to the one neighbor that came out on the weekend. They didn't have a problem with it. It's across the street from me.
Okay.
And that's where we're at from the last time we met.
Yeah, we did get a letter from a neighbor.
Okay.
In opposition. So the neighbor, let me see, this is the attorney.
One from
That-
Susan Wexler and one from David Reinbach.
Correct, yeah, we had a second letter too. Yeah, yeah.
David Reinbach lives at the end of the road.
And one from Zuckerman.
Yep,
Who lives
Zuckerman.
right along the
Your
driveway.
neighbor that didn't have a problem and lives across the street, too. So what's the difference?
Susan Wexler.
Yep, yeah. So we did have some correspondence on this.
Okay.
But otherwise, you're, looking to get the relief that you're requesting. Anything else you want to tell us?
Don't see any other choice.
Okay, and I think we probably wanted to make sure that the neighbors were notified, which, we try to do that so that people and your neighbors and people's neighbors know, what's going on with an application. So they have an opportunity to be heard if they want to attend a meeting or submit a letter to us. So we did, they have been notified, we did receive their
4 letters.
concerns.
What were their
And-
concerns, Adams? Because initially, remember, there was opposition to the prior variance, but it was more about the use. I mean, what were the neighbors' concerns this time?
One of the
Actually,
the driveway.
they object to the driveway.
They object to the RV being parked in the driveway and Man's Heating and Air Conditioning trucks being parked in the driveway.
I live there. It's fine.
I know, but maybe they're
Personal
suggesting with 2
vehicle.
driveways.
The RV is
it's gonna be
parked in the
more.
middle of the driveway because I'm renovating. It's usually parked at my commercial building. The ground is so wet from the rain, I haven't been able to put it back over there. We had just left and gone on vacation for Easter, and it's been raining nonstop.
Okay.
No, I would say that especially if you're in the middle of a variance request to park commercial vehicles in a residential area is not a good idea.
It's my commercial vehicle that I drive.
Okay,
I live there.
okay.
And
Well, the
it's
variance that was
parked in the
granted in 2013 also, sir, was conditioned upon the fact that that second driveway was supposed to be removed.
Right, and
And it hasn't been.
Correct.
Either by you or
I had
prior
just
owner,
purchased the
whoever
property
bought it.
when
I understand.
and I had
It's what it is.
several building permits open and closed since then, and it was never brought up, and I didn't realize, which I would have addressed it sooner.
Well, I'm looking at the decision, and it certainly
You
is
haven't
there.
had the RV that long either.
No.
Right, right.
It's
This-
brand new.
The decision was May 16, 2013. I wrote it, and the relief granted herein, so I have some familiarity with it. The relief granted herein is conditioned on the applicants and/or any future owner of the subject property removing the second driveway, in parentheses, for the inhabitants of the existing accessory apartment within 1 year of the date of this decision, and obtaining all required approvals for parking for the existing accessory apartment from the Southampton Town Building Department. So you want that condition removed. During the prior public hearing, which was some time ago, there was a discussion about this, and apparently the attorney for the applicant at the time agreed that a condition be included in the decision, that the second driveway be removed within 1 year of the date of the decision.
Well, as did the applicant. I mean,
Right, correct. So that's what transpired back then.
So one neighbor had a complaint, or 3 neighbors complained?
There's actually a bunch.
We've gotten Herman Glasswand
Yeah.
at 69 Chase Court. Susan Wexler at 102 Chase Court. David Reinbach and Jeffrey Zuckerman.
Zuckerman he's behind me.
Okay.
The other people, they're all
Down
at
the
the end of
street.
the end of the road. The one, David Reinbeck, is like the neighbor, the mayor of the neighborhood. And, but that's, he's at the last house at the end of the street on the side road.
Okay. Well, it's, they're concerned. So, that's, so we have to take a look at what their concerns are. We have to take a look at the impact of what removing this condition in the decision would have on them, as well as the benefit that it has to you, and figure out what to do.
I'm not happy that, I'm just one member of this board, but I'm not happy when we condition a variance and then all of a sudden, 6 years later, somebody wants relief from it. That wasn't our thinking back in 13.
It was not, clearly, it was not.
I agree with Keith.
I agree as well.
That's 3.
An argument sakes, if I knew about it and was aware of it and things go on in your life you don't remember, but I've had several building permits on the property, improving and making it better, and nothing was ever said, and I've closed out those building permits, and here we have, it came about when I opened up this building permit. I've taken the eyesore of the neighborhood and made it into a better house.
Was that May 13, 2013?
The decision, the date of the decision was May 13th.
When did you buy the property?
Wait, just wait a second. This decision.
May 16th, 2013.
Listen to me. This decision reads, this decision is talking about the public hearings, and it says, Mr. Mance further indicated that he intends to use the accessory apartment for his mother-in-law, which accessory apartment is only located on the upper level of this barn. That's the problem. I mean, that's the problem.
October 2000.
No, but the problem is that you guys were here. You knew you were going to buy this and you were going to live in it. So it's hard to, I understand what you're saying. The town comes out and they've looked at everything and the driveway's been there, but you guys were part of this decision.
Right. And we need to have certainty in what we do. So, when there's a give and take, in a public hearing process, and ultimately a decision is rendered, it's very hard for us to reverse course unless there's a real significant change of circumstances that justifies it. And so I don't know that that's here, but.
Why was it important for the second driveway to be?
I don't know, and that's kind of why we noticed it, because we thought, well, maybe everybody, because Mr. Mance had said, listen, when this public hearing was going on, there was a lot of opposition, but it was more about the property itself, who was living there and how it was being used, and that was why, we suggested, well, let's notice it again, and if there's no opposition, then clearly it had nothing to do with the driveway. Now, there is opposition to do with the driveway. Now, whether or not it's the driveway or it's the parking of vehicles is what the board will have to weigh, because you do give relief for this. You oftentimes give relief. It's a problem when they didn't ask for it, it was conditioned to be removed, and now you're asking for it.
Yeah, and that's I think the difference. So I think you laid it out pretty
How do you
well.
know how the vote would have went?
And they had all
if they
the
weren't going to
cameras
remove
there,
it?
nobody could.
We don't. Right. And the public hearing could be, the tape could be, listened to as to what the give and take was. But ultimately, whatever the give and take was, this was what was decided then, and it's not that long ago that this happened. So, that, and it was offered. So that's how it all came about. So, and I, as, one member of this board, I understand what my colleagues are saying. We don't want to be putting conditions in decision and then reversing course on them, because then it appears, it appears that people can't count on the decisions that we render as decisions we're gonna leave on the property. Okay. Any other questions or comments from members of the board? Is there anyone from the public who would like to be heard this evening in connection with the application of Mance? This is for 570 Lumber Lane in Bridgehampton. Okay. If not, I have lead on the application. I believe I'm lead on the application.
You are.
And right now, as it stands, you have 3 people who are a no on this decision. So you need 4 yeses for the decision to be approved.
Yeah.
It's what it is. I can't
Yeah.
change people's
Have to
mind.
find a way.
It's-
There is no other way.
Yeah.
It's physically
I
impossible.
mean, you have.
For
I've
anyone, really.
I've sat down with Dennis O'Rourke had that survey draw 20 different ways of trying to make a parking it work so that my mother-in-law could get to the house. There was no way. I tried to put the driveway parallel to the road. He said you can't have a driveway parallel to the road. The other side is my swimming pool.
If
So
you'd see it,
basically
you'd
the
understand
pool,
the problem.
the driveway would be a foot off the pool. I can't have my mother-in-law driving to her house a foot off the pool.
How many feet are we away now from your driveway for me to get
A
across?
compromise, maybe.
It can't work.
It looks like it's a large driveway, so if it's for a single car, That's what, it seems like your neighbor's objection is to the size of the driveway and the amount
It
of cars
just,
being
that's the
stored.
way it's always been there. I mean, it can be narrowed down. It's not, I don't need the driveway anything but for her car.
Before him, there were 5, 6, 7 cars
No, no,
going
I-
in
well, I
there
think
at
that's
all
what
times.
But I agree,
And
but
30 or
what I'm
40
saying is,
people.
you came before this board.
It doesn't make
You said, I'll get rid
sense.
of the driveway as part of the variance application. Now, the neighbor opposition seems to be the number of cars being stored there. If it was.
But there's only her car that's being stored
One
there.
little
and
Mini
occasionally
Cooper.
the RVs when
I'm
we're
reading
going
4
camping
letters,
somewhere.
and they're saying there's multiple vehicles there. I don't know, I don't drive by there.
And there's a picture
But I'm
of an
saying to
RV.
you, you want something from us.
Right.
So maybe a compromise is you think about it and you come back to us and say, I put a single car parking spot there, that only her car fits there. Maybe that's something this board can, I would consider, what I'm saying, and maybe it's different for your neighbors who are saying, all these cars can't be stored there.
So that's the other thing we can do, is we can leave it open.
I'm just
and
saying
come
that
back.
might be a compromise. Because
They
it still allows
probably
you to
have
park
seen the
there.
camper, but that hasn't been
Well, they
there
sent
that
us
long.
pictures of the camper, they sent us pictures of other trucks. I'm not saying that the use, we're not here to regulate
Right.
use. But I'm saying, it seems like their concern is the amount of vehicles being stored there. So if it's truly just for one Mini Cooper car,
Right.
you don't need, you know.
Yeah, but.
Well, I'm just saying, there's one member,
I
I'm just saying.
understand, but,
that's
but
something different.
but I'm troubled with enforcement
Yeah.
of that. You know, you can imagine, they show up with 3 cars.
Well, the driveway is
one
pretty
day,
large back there, and we've been,
I drove by, it was a large driveway.
and the whole front driveway is completely, it's being constructed right now, they're planting and landscaping.
Construction all the time.
So we've been using that to store the vehicles, for the time being while they're doing the driveway.
Yeah, I mean, Katie, if we were to limit it as to the amount of cars that the driveway uses, I would think that would be a real problem with enforcement.
Well, I think Brian's point is,
I'm saying
you
the
know,
size.
yes.
Like,
exactly.
right now,
it's quite wide.
Right.
Like if you
Scale
have
it back, landscape
you know,
it
a
back,
10
you
by
know.
15 space,
Yeah.
you can't park anything big in there.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm not saying that changed the board, but.
Right.
Takes the ability to.
Yeah, I mean, if you landscape in a way that that only allows one car, it's,
Maybe not,
Yeah.
it seems like people are not, but I'm just trying to,
Yes.
there's a compromise there for you.
His father or something had something to do with this property also, I think.
It was his father's property.
Yeah, I can remember the whole thing.
I was the neighbor, I used to live across the street from him.
So what would you like to do? Would you like to come back, or would you like to have us close it and just decide?
If you think that if I come back and say we'll limit it to the size of one vehicle, narrow it, right now it's probably 16 feet wide, make it so it's the 8 feet wide, or I could do 2, gravel strips or grass so that you can only go in there with one vehicle.
Maybe you should, I don't know, maybe you should just think about it, but maybe the board doesn't, maybe it doesn't matter to others, I don't know. The decision, you
I could
agreed
talk
to
to
give
the
it up.
neighbors, I mean, I'm pretty friendly with the Zuckerman guy right behind me, never really had any problems with him.
Well, if there's a way to alleviate the neighbors' concerns, that would help. But I'm not, I'm just not sure exactly where we're headed. I think the
Okay.
neighbors are saying that it's negatively impacting them. But I'm also troubled by the history of this. And I'm not.
No, I'm not discounting
And
it.
I'm not the only one.
Listen, they yes this in 13, said, okay, we'll get rid of the driveway, just give me what I need. That's what it was. That's what it was.
At the day,
Hearing.
I had just bought the property from him.
Not yet.
Yeah, I know, yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So we got the money.
We could do 2 things, we can close the hearing,
And six years
or you can
later,
think about it,
now
talk to your
removing
neighbor,
the
maybe
driveway.
come up with another idea and come back. I'm not saying that's
I
gonna
mean,
change
if
your
you think
decision.
it's possible that I can achieve that, if not, if everybody's going to say no, then I'll have to figure out something else.
Drive on the grass, I guess. I can't possibly make it. There's no way.
Is anybody else here?
I don't know how many feet it
Sure.
is, but it's far.
Okay, all right, so
I mean,
why don't we put it over, and we'll keep it open, and if it turns out that you decide that you want to leave the application as is, just, you send a letter to Candace. But otherwise, we'll keep it open until our next meeting, which I believe is June 6th? Okay, all right, so I would move that we hold the application of Mance open for all purposes until our June 6th meeting. Okay, Mr. Hahn?
Aye.
Mr. Tudhill? Aye. Ms. Burgess?
Aye.
Mr. DeSessa?
Aye.
Mr. Daly?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. I guess we'll see you on June 6th unless you decide that you just send a letter if you decide that you just want to stick with the application as is.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Break?
Yep.
Okay, short break. We're taking a short break, folks.
Number 9.
Number 9, Diane Christopher, 19 Maple Lane in Noyak, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-3-2-10. This is a meeting that's held over from our April 18th meeting.
Good evening, board members. Thank you for allowing us to be adjourned. I was actually out of the country on April 18th, and we put it off to today's date. At that evening meeting, though, we did submit the affidavit of posting and mailing so you could get jurisdiction at that time, and you duly adjourned it till tonight. The application here, Diane Christopher acquired this property. It was gifted to her by her mother in 2008. And interestingly, her brother owns the property immediately to the south, Nicholas Christopher. You see it on the survey. And ever since that occurred, they've been sort of feuding, and most recently complaints were made a couple years ago in that certain structures didn't receive necessary permits. And so, I don't know, but the complaints were followed through with the information submitted to the Justice Court. That's when we first got involved. The first thing, and we also got Suffolk Environmental involved because there's wetlands just to the west of this property and on this property. We immediately identified that this board had previously granted variances to allow an expansion of the house and a deck, and that was in 1999 or thereabouts, 97. Actually, you granted the variances, and the COs were issued. And what we were able to find after reviewing all the records, that in fact there were certain additions. In particular, you approved a certain deck only 6 feet in width, and you gave a rear yard variance to 25 feet. Well, there was a deck, and we saw from the aerial photographs in the town GIS that that deck was expanded on the southwest portion, and now the closest point is 17.5 feet from the westerly property line. Another issue was there was a shed in the corner of the property, which was on the survey that you reviewed, and that shed was of a certain size, approximately 8 by 10, I believe it was, and it was 1.8 and virtually a half a foot off the property line. However, and in about 2004, or between 2008 and 2010, it looks like or 2004 and 2008, the shed was replaced with a larger shed, and the deck was expanded between 2008 and 2010. Our client acquired the property from her mother in 2012. So all these improvements, everything was done prior to my client getting conveyed the property. And she had no idea any of these problems exist until her brother complained to code enforcement, and thus we got involved and were able to look at all the records, and sure enough found, and we sat with the building inspector, and then we sat with Marty Shea to figure out, and she went through the whole wetland process, included creating new buffers, replanting, all that was accomplished. We thought we were all set, applied to the building department. The building department said, you need variances because the deck was expanded, the shed was expanded. So we're here to more or less legalize the shed that was placed in and about 2004, between 2004 and 2008. And because it's literally on the property line or a foot, the building department told us we need pyramid relief for that shed. The shed was always there. We provided a copy of all the variances in this neighborhood. Practically 9 of the 11 lots in this neighborhood all received variances. Most recently, immediately adjacent, this board and the Conservation Board went through a whole wetland process. If you look at the properties, the sheds are sort of in that northwest corner, and it's the same existing conditions. And that was, if you look at the permits that were issued by this board and the Conservation Board for the adjacent property, you can see the shed that was duly noted on the plan, so it's been there in existence in all those aerial photographs. So we're here for those variances to legalize it. We did receive Conservation Board, like I said, they amended the covenants, we provided you with all the copies of that. We also asked the building department whether or not, and they didn't think we needed it, but we asked to legalize the outdoor shower, which is on the back of the property, legalize the trellis over part of the deck, all of these which were approved by Marty Shea. Everything in the Conservation Board has approved all the wetland things. Everything has existed, like I said, built by the parents. And the real problem with this property, the practical difficulty is it's only 76 feet in width, or depth. There is no other place you could put a shed on this property. You couldn't do anything else. The setbacks are what they are. I mean, you can't do anything. So that's what the application is about. We did
Singular shed, wait.
Correct.
Now, I see in survey, it's got 2 sheds. Older one, by the looks of it. I see
older ones, yeah. And well, some of those are other properties, so be careful. Yeah.
Other properties.
Yeah, the most, everything you see in here are all the neighboring properties.
Does it meet building code, Wayne? And then that's what the
Shed?
building department's doing now, yeah.
I assume so, it's a pre...
No, they're asking us on that now. Like, if we give you a variance and you go down there and it doesn't meet building code, and you have to put a new one there, the variance doesn't apply.
Right.
That's why I'm asking. That's what they're doing down there now.
Well, we sat with the building department, they were the ones that told us to do this, and we had to go get an engineer, architect to do this plan with the shed for an
But you
existing
have,
shed.
you have architectural plans and engineering plans of the shed.
Yes.
Yeah.
But usually
That's what
they
they'll
want something just that it's good, that it is a stable structure essentially, pursuant to code.
Right. I mean, we can go and ask the building department if they have any further issues with this, but.
No, I'm asking,
we'll
we
do
had
that.
someone come back recently.
No, but we were the ones that were all set, and actually Suffolk Environmental had actually applied for the building permits, and then we're told, no, you can't, they can't be processed because we need the variance because it's not the same shed that existed before, and because the deck was expanded.
Okay.
So.
All right. So obviously, we don't have information on who built the structures without permits, and
The parents did.
The parents did, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Parents. The father passed away, the mother then had it and then conveyed to her daughter. But what we were able to ascertain, and when she acquired it in 2012, all these structures existed.
Yeah. So the parents paid somebody to do the work?
Yeah.
And we don't know who?
No idea. Nor does my client.
Okay.
And now, none of the parents are around to assist in that.
Okay. All right. So not much we can do to follow up.
Can't
on
beat
the
anybody up
aspects.
tonight.
Yeah. Okay. Have you heard from the neighbors?
No, interestingly, I thought the brother would be here, but...
Does not appear to be here?
Huh?
Okay. All right. Okay.
Are you guys okay with the shed?
Yep.
You all right
What
with the
was
shed? We're all right with the shed?
I have a hard time with sheds that are 1 and 2 feet away from the property line, but that's just me, you know.
I think that I would agree with you normally, but if you look back, this is where that shed was, but then you also look down at the line on all these properties, which we gave you copies of the surveys, everybody has a similar condition.
Yes, but many of those sheds may either be pre-existing or not have approvals, so that's possible as well. And I, over the years, have stated exactly the same thing. I do not like sheds on or near property lines in most instances. And the argument that it's the sheds should be allowed to stay because everybody else in the neighborhood decided to put sheds on property lines, probably without approvals, it can be.
And then they'll be in here, and we'll have another hearing for
Oh,
every
yeah.
other person in the neighborhood.
Oh, you
because
gave
they
them a
wanna do
shed,
something.
you gotta give us a shed.
They have to get.
Well, interestingly, though,
Job security, Wayne already sent everyone letters.
most of these properties, like I said, have had some sort of relief before this board. And
Yeah.
the one immediately adjacent, both of them actually had variances for similar structures, so it's not like somebody isn't looking at it, and that's all I'm saying.
Well,
It's a little
that-
different than some other circumstances.
Well, but I mean, the building department can go to the property and not recognize that there's a shed on the property that needs approvals and doesn't have them, or that is, needs variance that doesn't have that these things can be missed. But I understand what you're saying. I mean, and your client is trying to do the right thing here. Your client is trying to
Right.
legalize. So, and I appreciate that as well.
But there's another variance on this too, right? There's the front covered deck, or is that?
Front covered deck?
I mean, legalize a front covered deck constructed without benefit.
Oh, yeah. You're asking for relief.
For a
there.
front yard setback of 13.8 where 17 is existing.
That's not us.
Am I looking at the wrong thing?
Yeah, no, it's written up that way.
It's written up, and it's written up.
You need for the front porch too, you need more than just
Yeah.
the shed.
Yeah.
Need a shed, and now the pyramid of 743, is that for the shed?
Yes. Yes, that's only the shed.
Okay.
Yeah. But, it's a long thing of relief that I usually write them out by hand, and it's taken, most of the page, but this is structures that are as-built, as Wayne said, by a prior owner, even though it's the parents, but by a prior owner. We don't have information as to how it was, how this occurred, and we may or may not have anyone here appearing in opposition. I'm thinking we probably don't.
Right.
Okay. Any other comments or members of the board? Is there anyone from the public who would like to be heard this evening in connection with the application of Christopher? This is for 19 Maple Lane in Noyak. If not, mic is yours.
Oh, we'll close this hearing.
You wait for a response from Conservation Board?
We,
I just want to submit,
except for
though,
written
is they
submission.
did grant the wetland permit.
I understand, we still need a referral report. Yeah, they may just be reiterating whatever they did when you were before them, but we need a referral report from
So
them.
do we think we'll have that in time for June 6th?
I really don't know, not sure.
We don't know, okay. So we'll leave it open for written submissions, and once we get that, then we'll,
Okay.
if it comes in time for June 6th, but, you'll
I know how it
just-
works.
You know how it works, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Michael, you're
Thank
putting
you.
it for 6-6?
Yes, second.
6-6 for decision, written subs. Mr. Daly?
Aye.
Mr. Sessa?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Burgess?
Aye.
Mr. Tudhill?
Aye.
Mr. Hahn? Aye. Chair votes aye.
Item 7 on the agenda, KAARP Management Group LLC, 17 Ludlow Lane, Hampton Bays,
That's not
Suffolk
yours.
County Tax Map 900-346-1-10. This is held over from our 4/18/19 meeting.
This was a reopen, I believe.
It was.
Yes.
It was.
Thank you.
You want to read it?
No.
I'm in the pool.
You pass this. Oh, you don't believe Helen?
I know.
Okay.
So good evening, board members. Wayne Bruin, O'Shea Marcinsica Bruin on behalf of the applicant. Our firm was retained a little over a month ago. This project has a long history, both before this board and the Conservation Board. Started back with Hurricane Sandy. Property was improved, substantial dwelling on the property at the time, and I'll explain what the property is. And as everybody who was damaged during Hurricane Sandy, the town adopted resolutions to authorize Conservation Board, among other things, to expedite and help in assisting through the application process for any structures that were damaged. So in February 2013, the former owner applied to Marty Shea, and Marty came back with a whole report asking for actually more information before he could give any evaluation. 3 years later, that applicant did nothing. It was so damaged it wasn't occupied, but 3 years later, the property was sold to our client in 2016. All that is a matter of record before this board. The property is known as 17 Ludlow Lane in Hampton Bays. It's shown as lots 17 and 19 on the subdivision map of Rampasture Cove, filed on May 17th, 1960. And that map had, and that copy of that map's in your record, had 21 lots. The zoning at the time was C residence zoning, and it required a minimum lot area of 15,000 square feet. And each of the 21 lots had approximately 15,000 square feet. The subject lot, however, is fronts on Smiths Creek, and it actually combines two lots and has 35,728 square feet. And other than the lot directly to the south, opposite this, which is also a double, two lots combined, all the other remaining 17 lots in the subdivision are all 15,000 square foot lots. None of the other lots, and by the way, each of the lots now being upzoned a couple times, if each of the lots, like this lot is, and this was in your record, a single and separate lot, they're each entitled to utilize the C residence zoning as opposed to the current zoning. And that's all the lots, if they can prove that single and separate, and I imagine that's what's occurred on each of the lots. All of the lots are improved, all have single-family dwelling on them. Many of the lots have swimming pools and other accessory structures. We provided you with documents in the package today which shows you character of the area, also a map of all the existing variances this board has granted, both in this subdivision and the adjoining subdivision, and also variances that have to do with pools, swimming pools, in particular 3 or 4 cases where you granted variances to allow swimming pool in the front yard, which is essentially being asked for here. As you know, this board was involved in and previously granted some variances. I want to get to that sort of history, but Ludlow Lane is a private road. It's a dead-end street extending from Rampasture Road on the west and terminating on Smiths Creek. The right-of-way is approximately 50 feet, and it's paved approximately 24 feet in width. It terminates approximately 25 feet upland of Smiths Creek. There is no turnaround or designated parking area. It's just 24 feet directly. And information and belief, the street end is not used for parking, used primarily by the residents for pedestrian access to the water. There's 24 feet, and I don't know whether it does, but it's not designed. There's no turnaround or otherwise. It's not a typical cul-de-sac. If you look at the subdivision right away, actually, it widens at the end of the street, but all of that is below mean high water. The beach area, public access is only below the mean high water mark. The mean high water mark is shown on all the surveys. There's very limited space or beach area. It's very narrow. The area, primarily not a lot of land to utilize, or otherwise the public to walk along the frontage of all these lots, unless it's at low tide. There's a new dwelling that was also constructed on the lot directly opposite that sort of matches the double lot here. That's similarly developed with a retaining wall along the street, and we'll talk about that process, how that got there as well. And the Conservation Board recently approved a swimming pool on that property. And from my review of the record, that was one of the things when I got involved a month ago. I pulled every town record I could. I pulled every file. I've reviewed your hearings. I've reviewed all the Conservation Board hearings that have taken place over the last years. It's my understanding you have in the record a letter from this landowner across the street with the similar development of the wall, as similar developed here, not objecting to the requested variance. You also have letters that were received after the close of your hearing in January, but since you reopened, they're now part of the record, and I understand there may be some folks here that want to speak again as well. So, why are we here? As I mentioned, this property was originally developed with
How big was the original house, Wayne?
the approximate square footage, 2,800 square feet. The footprint is not that significantly different, but nonetheless, the process that took place here is the applicant applied to both, and I provided a little timeline, and you can see that. I don't want to get into that detail, we'll be here all night, but it's important to go back and look at the history here, because the applicant did what every applicant's required to do. In the first place they start is not here. They started with the Conservation Board and Marty Shea. They also started with the New York State DEC. Their engineers also consulted with the Health Department. Immediately, the town requirements requiring an innovative alternative wastewater treatment system that had to be considered here. But they immediately, literally, within weeks after he acquired the property, the applicant applied to the Conservation Board. Had to get his application was deemed incomplete, it required flagging, et cetera, more information, Marty Shea. And at that time, and there's a lot of fodder given to an alternative, which was in a letter that was provided to the board after the close of the hearing, about an alternative, a typical sketch that Marty Shea would prepare. And that was in a letter from Mr. Prudenti's office that you have. And in that alternative, if you recall, and this is the type of sketch, but what the attorney's office
You
didn't...
have copies of that?
You have that in your record to sketch, but the question is, do you have everything else that goes along with that sketch? And do you have this history and understand the context in which the sketch is given and why it's now being argued? The argument that our neighbors are saying is that Marty Shea said, here's an alternative where you didn't have to put the pool in the front yard along Ludlow Lane. Okay, but what you need to do is understand sort of the process. So the process is when you go to the Conservation Board, unlike this board, when you're the applicant, you submit your application, you don't get on your agenda. Marty Shea prepares a preliminary advisory report. You get a copy of that advisory report hours before the meeting, and you're given a choice, either agree to his proposed mitigation or a public hearing is scheduled. You know, and a minor thing, it's one thing. Reconstruction of a house. So automatically, and you go to the meeting, Marty reads his report, applicant can't speak, and the board, after Marty reads his report, determines whether to schedule a public hearing. And that's what occurred. The Conservation Board didn't discuss the alternatives or anything else. They immediately scheduled a public hearing, which got adjourned a couple times. And this started in November of 2016. It gets off, and finally they get a hearing in January because of rescheduling and the like. And they hear, finally, they get to present their case. They finally hear comments from everybody. And shortly after that, the board adjourned it because a lot of questions, comments, and information was needed. And our client and his engineers met with Marty Shea, which is what you do when you hear the comments. You meet with Marty Shea, and they sat down and discussed. At that time, the application was for a house, attached garage, and a swimming pool. The swimming pool was located to the north, along the north side. And if you go back and look at this property again, and what's unique about this property in the neighborhood is not only is it a waterfront lot with a street on one side, but it also has wetlands on the north. So it's constrained. No other lot in this area, even the one across the street, even though it's a street lot and a waterfront, there's no wetlands that then push envelopes to another direction. So Marty's first thing is anytime there's an accessory structure, whether it be a garage, pool, tennis court, whatever it is, you got to meet the required setback or they're going to not give you the permit. So immediately, and I drew on this plan, which I can submit to the record, but the first thing is the 100-foot wetland setback that must be met You know, if you have an existing house and you're replacing the house and it's less than the 100 feet, you have some room of negotiation, and that's sort of the starting point with Marty. He understands the essence of having your primary dwelling. However, when it comes to an accessory structure, especially a new accessory structure, like a pool, he says it has to meet a 100-foot setback. So this is the 100-foot setback. So immediately, Marty, and when you go back to Marty's sketch, he's recognizing the 100-foot setback. He pushes the pool over here. Now, the interesting thing is the zoning, being C resident zoning, you have to have a 50-foot setback from the street. So this dotted red line here, I don't know if you can see it. So the green line is the 100-foot setback. That is here. This dotted red line is the 50-foot setback from the street. So your building envelope to put an accessory structure, detached accessory structure, garage, pool, whatever else, gazebo, is in that location. Okay? Very limited. Very limited. So if you look, so our client goes in with his engineers, and they're also consulting the DEC, they're also consulting primarily the health department, because they got to do an IA system here. And
Can I ask you a question? To the best of my recollection, and the board members, fellow members, might remember better than I do, and it's been such a long time that this has been dragging on, that one of the key ideas that I remember is that when the applicant was attempting to build this house, and he had a visit with Marty Shea, and and explained to Marty Shea that he wanted this pool. Marty Shea said to him, and maybe we need to have him here, said, in order to have a pool, you'd have to have, the house cannot be as large as you want it, because the way, where you want it, to have the house that big and the pool in that position was not acceptable to him. Now, do you have anything in writing that says that that opinion that was expressed at one of these previous meetings was changed by Marty Shea?
we do, and I'll get to that.
Okay, I'd like to see that, because that was one of the most important things for me in framing some type of decision on this, because he was told at the beginning, before he built the house, this is the house to build. If you want a pool, you cannot have this house. And he went ahead, built the house, and then came to us for a variance, which was not acceptable to Marty Shea.
I'll get to that process, but
Okay.
you gotta
can
get
get
to
to
the
that
history here,
soon.
because what happened is,
yeah.
what happened here is immediately at that hearing, here's the plan with the pool up here and Marty's sketch now being
I
suggested.
can't seem to find that, so if you don't mind giving me a copy.
Not a problem. I mean, I'll make sure you have another copy.
Okay.
Because what it goes to is this is the report where Marty's recommendations on a preliminary advisory report. Now, this is before anybody's heard anything, any public opportunity to be heard or otherwise has occurred. This is Marty's advisory report.
So that's November 7th?
November 7th, 2016.
And this is before the house was built?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
So this comes in, and then after the public hearing, our client meets with Marty, with the engineers, who are also consulting with the health department. So the interesting thing is, you look at this sketch, is if it was solely about the pool and it wasn't about building a new house and wasn't putting in a septic system, then we might say the pool, there was an alternative there. But what has to happen is there's an entire play on how and where and what elements go into this. So the first thing is, Marty's not an engineer, he's not the health department. Marty's very knowledgeable about what the health department may or may not be doing. So what he does, he puts, and this is the south side, Ludlow Lane, waterfront. He puts a box here with what he believes is the design of the IA system. not from an engineering standpoint, not from a health department standpoint, or any other thing. After meeting with the health department, the IA system that you see here, which was approved by the health department, which was approved by the Conservation Board, which was approved by Marty Shea, reasons the high point of the property is located here. You need the greatest depth of the groundwater, number one. Number two is the setback from the wetlands had to be a certain size and location. It also had to meet 20-foot setbacks from any drainage structures. They needed drainage of any driveway or otherwise out into the street. So with all that input from health department now, the engineers now go back to Marty and say, here's an alternative. What do you think, Marty? Marty says, submit it. However, if you're going to continue to fight for the pool, it's going to hold up your replacing of the house. What do you want to do, applicant? If you want to fight with the pool, then we'll do that. But if you want to get your house, you may want to think about taking the pool off the plans and fight that battle at a later date. So our client took the pool off. The Conservation Board reviews it, grants a wetland permit. After the wetland permit, which you have a copy of in the record, okay, so automatically first is Marty Shea in his recommendations to the Conservation Board approving something different than this with the IA system in that location, okay, and that IA system, it's just not the 6 galleys. You have the septic tank, you have the control panel, and then you have 6 galleys and 3 expansion galleys. The health department, however, anytime an IA system's under a driveway, requires all the galleys to be put in. Can't just leave a space for future. They required all 9 galleys to be put in. They're physically in the ground. So everything in yellow is physically there. That was approved by the health department, approved by the Conservation Board. So that's done. DEC had a permit when they walked in to have the pool up here. Everything else, they weren't as stringent as Marty was in protecting the wetlands, particularly to the north. They had to go back and modify that. The modified permit for the DEC showed a pool. So we have a DEC permit for a pool on the south side at 14 feet, 14.6.
But after he agreed to give up the pool to get the house.
Well, true.
I
We still have a DEC
I couldn't
permit.
hear you.
He didn't agree to give up the pool.
He agreed to not move forward with the house without certainty on the pool.
That's true. So he submits to the Conservation Board, gets the
Could you say that
permit.
again? I couldn't hear you. Could you say what you just said?
But he told us last time that he agreed to move forward with the house without certainty on the pool.
Yeah.
Right. So that occurred.
Mhm.
Okay. Got a DEC permit, though, with a pool.
Yep.
Okay. And there's an element of your test that you need to know as protection of the environment. And a lot of what happens at the DEC, the Conservation Board, speaks to that part of the test. Okay? And we'll get to the other parts of the test in a discussion. But I want to give that background because a lot is being said about this so-called sketch as this was the end-all, be-all. But it's really not, because it takes some engineering design, not just somebody saying, go do it this way. So with all that occurring, not only did this Conservation Board do that, then they came to this board, gave some limited pyramid and setback relief. Pool wasn't shown, and it wasn't part of the equation. You granted that relief. A building permit was issued, and the house is pretty close to completion. So that was issued in 2017, the building permit. And a year later, the applicant then made an application both to this board and to the Conservation Board, now to locate a pool 14 feet from Ludlow Lane. This board held a hearing, and you adjourned it primarily because you wanted to get a report from the Conservation Board and find out what their input was. Well, that hearing the hearing at the Conservation Board, there was a preliminary advisory report from Marty Shea. Now for the pool, located in this location at 14 feet. Marty's preliminary advisory report at that time says, well, if this is going to occur, I want additional buffer. The first time around, this red line shows the extent of the buffer that he required. Next time around, Marty wanted all this additional buffer area, among other mitigation that he wanted, okay? But Marty Shea, in his preliminary advisory report, said, needs a public hearing. But his recommendation is for mitigation, if the Conservation Board so considered it, was that you needed increased and a few other elements, drainage, being French drains as opposed to other dry wells, things of that sort. And there was public hearings. And they, at the end of the public hearing process, the public hearing record was closed. And after that, the Conservation Board granted a permit for the swimming pool at this location. And you have a copy of that permit in your record. After that permit was granted is when the applicant came back to you. You had a public hearing. And I think it was adjourned, exact history, but January 2nd or 3rd, you had another hearing. People came, statements, I'm assuming, and the zoning board closed the hearing. After the hearing, you received a letter from counsel for the neighbors suggesting that this sketch from 2016 had a lot different weight than what I just described to you. And without any context, without any information that the Conservation Board had subsequently reviewed all the different alternatives or otherwise and considered that, and granted permits not only for the house and everything else, but also subsequently granted a permit for the swimming pool, all of which is tantamount to protection of the environment, protection of the wetlands. So when you go to your area variance test, and that part that says, is this protective of the environment and the wetlands, it's presumptive that the Conservation Board and the DEC, who have both approved this, are telling you it's protective of the wetlands and the environment. And there's no other element that would say otherwise. So I submit that information to the record. I'll make sure that's here. The question of complying with the permit. So I want to make sure that you have copies of those permits. If you don't, I have them here as well. You can take them. These are the Conservation Board permits and the original reports. You make sure that they're there, but I believe they're already in your record. So I gave you information on the character of the neighborhood. You have aerial photographs. We also provided you with copies of the information off the town GIS of all the lots in the neighborhood. This particular subdivision, as well as the subdivision to the south, is very similar to this subdivision. And what we found is there's a few instances in this very neighborhood where this board has granted variances, not only variances, but variances for swimming pools in the front yard.
But can I just interrupt you for 1 second? Because this answers one of the questions that I was struggling with that I think, Brian, you were talking about. This is the 2016 preliminary advisory report from the Conservation Board. And this is what I believe the applicant's wife had said before. So the permit, it says it's there, where is it? It's something about the new footprint was 2,246 square feet, and the old footprint was 3,343 square feet. Remember, she had said they had gone up, but they had shrunk the footprint of the existing house. And that, because that was something we were talking about, and that was something that you said,
I think
Helen.
the original house was 1 story?
Yes. So she had said she had increased the square footage, but she had decreased the footprints. That's what you would ask Wayne what the footprint was, and I remember her saying that.
Marty's.
Yes, this is Marty's report.
And that's, I can't tell you exactly the numbers, but whether or not You know, that's his preliminary report with the first application that walked into the Conservation Board. And there were
Yeah,
subsequent
anybody wants to
revisions
see
and
it?
modifications and a
Right,
permit,
right.
so
And then
we can
send
go
it-
back and find out
and then
those
bring it
exact
back.
numbers if you want.
I was only asking for those in the last 6 hearings, and we've never been provided them, so
Oh.
it's helpful.
Well, like I said, she did.
They didn't- no one had a clear
Yeah,
answer,
she
so
did say
that
that
was some of the
because she was saying, we didn't make this house, we didn't expand this house bigger, so there was no conforming location for the pool. We actually reduced the footprint.
Wayne, could you help me understand again why the project went forward without the swimming pool?
Essentially, Marty Shea said that, you know, and you read in his preliminary reports, that there was issues that Marty was transcending not only the environmental, he acknowledged all along, and the board always acknowledges the Conservation Board. Just because the Conservation Board approved it doesn't mean this board has to approve it. But it's, like I said, their approval, though, is tantamount to saying that it's protective of the wetlands. I mean, this board, I think it would be very arbitrary for you to sit down and say anything otherwise. I don't believe you have the expertise or otherwise, or had the information. I mean, you could, in theory, if you had something that totally contradicted everything the Conservation Board did, and the DEC as well. But I believe that's part of the test that says that. Now, when the applicant, you got to understand, this is a house, it's not occupied, it's damaged by Sandy, the applicant is here, and he's basically told that there's going to be a long process, and he's not going to be able to build a house. And it was basically suggested that the alternative is, well, why don't you get your house built, and then you can come back and battle the swimming pool at a later date. Take the swimming pool off the plans, and you can do that battle at a later date.
Because keeping it on the plans would have prolonged the approval process.
Process for him getting his house approved.
But that's not what I heard.
That's what I'm told. So what you heard, I don't know, but
Definitely.
even so, I don't think Marty would tell him that, you know, do that process. I'm sure Marty told him exactly what was said in here.
Marty did not-
You need variances, you need all sorts of other relief from other boards, you know, but I'm sure the discussion that took place, this is coming from my applicant, and the engineers that were at these meetings said this, that basically it was discussed, is that if you keep the pool on there, it's going to be a prolonged review process, as opposed to if you do this now and get the house built. Nonetheless, regardless of how or what was said, the point is, the plan was off, everybody approved the house plan and the septics in their location, and regardless whether the pool was there or not, it wasn't going to go where the septics were going. This is where the health department wanted it. So if you look at this and where the septic is, it occupies pretty much the area that would have been allowed under zoning for this swimming pool. So otherwise, it would have needed relief no matter how or where. Could you have cut down a portion of the house and put a pool outside, but it'd still be outside the building envelope? Possibly, but
But when you have a lot that has these kinds of limitations on it, you're going to have multiple agencies involved in everything that goes on the property. And so in these circumstances, you know, it is very difficult to navigate all you know, different agencies that are involved. So, you know, it's not unusual for us to have an application where a pool or other accessory structures or the house is at a location that's very close to the property line. Why? Because the Conservation Board is trying to protect wetlands. And so we end up getting an application coming from Conservation Board with an applicant saying, well, we didn't want it to be such extensive, variance relief, but our hands were tied by the Conservation Board. The other thing I just want to mention is that there were different comments from different parties as to what transpired. So, we can take the documents, we can consider the testimony, and we have to decide, to an extent, who we believe. But I have to say, the documents themselves speak louder than the conjecture as to who said what.
Here's what my question was. That permit, and if you don't have it tonight, that's fine, but I'd like to see a set of floor plans for the entire house, because Marty's permit was for a 2,246 square foot house with a 920 square foot detached garage, which has now become an attached garage. So the original footprint, this was one of the questions I had at the previous hearings, the original footprint of 3,100 or 3,200 feet of a single-story house has now become 3,166 of 2 stories. So I wanted to see the plans, because one of the questions was that we had asked the applicant at the time.
So you're questioning whether the house that was built is in accordance with the plans approved by Marty Shea?
No, I'm saying that. The permit broke it up. So the permit broke up a house of 2,246 square feet, 2 stories. Then it also provided for a detached 920 square foot garage.
It was never detached.
But the permit was, and that's, the square footages were separated
So
on
there's
Marty.
something in that permit, right?
On Marty's
We didn't
permit.
look at that.
No, I'm saying that was a question we had last time, because that had it been entered. So the position that the argument, and that's what we had asked the applicant's wife, that the position that the house that was 3,200 square feet of single-story was now reduced to a 2-story, I had a question about that, because when you add the two together, it came out to more. So that we were looking
You
for
essentially
clarity.
want to know all the numbers and the breakdown.
Yeah, because the position was that they built a house too big to fit a pool, and then
Yeah.
I'm saying that was what.
I get that, but I
was
mean,
yeah.
believe me, everybody's
I'm not saying
all
that
over
this is
and
wrong.
this is what was
But I'm saying
exactly on
they
the
broke
plans.
the square footages of the footprint out. So that was what, one of the questions.
Wayne,
But
I
I
have
have-
visited this property many times.
Mhm.
This house is very, very big. Very big. It's just, it's an enormous house for not that large a lot. And then it's like they got that house and then they said, okay, now we're going to get our pool. And they had a choice. They could have had a little smaller house and had the pool. And that's my biggest concern.
But I'm telling you, is based on my review of the record.
No, that's why I
That's not
just
the
think it's
case, and
helpful
I
for
agree
us
with
to-
the chairman, is the decisions of the Conservation Board speak loudly as to the fact, it sort of corroborates what happened. In other words, the applicant took the pool off and saved for a later day the battle on the pool, and he went back, subject to a whole public hearing process, and got a permit.
The other thing to consider is between the line as to where the wetlands boundary is.
Setback.
And the wetland setback is, and the 50 feet setback to Ludlow Lane, you got a little tiny box.
This is it.
Yeah, in terms of conforming. Arguably, the house could have been smaller, and then maybe they could have pushed the pool back, I don't know, another 10 feet or something like that. But
well,
it
you
certainly
would-
couldn't be anything close to conforming.
You wouldn't, again, so the issue here is, again, you got to be mindful is setbacks. If this is the design of the septic and location, health department, you got to be 20 feet from any structure. And that 20 feet is met there, the 20 feet is met to the drainage. So, again, the only area that would have been conforming, which is part of the house, is this little finger right here. Anything else outside of that would require a variance from this board. And I'm not saying, I don't even think now if I put a 20-foot setback this way, that you even have that. So no matter what, because, and this is not the applicant saying, I want to do this. He's being told by all the agencies, he's following the rules, he's following what the town environment division is telling him to do. He's listening to the DEC, he's listening to the health department, he's listening to his engineers.
And he's spending time and money and
I think that's-
in dealing with all this.
And I get that, and I've been through the process, I know it's frustrating getting bounced amongst those boards. My question, and it's helpful tonight, Wayne, the timeline and the materials you submitted, because up until now, it wasn't clear to me. I felt that we weren't getting the proper information
I
that
felt
we were
that
being
you need to
requested.
have that information.
And, I got to review all this, but I felt we weren't being
Now, there's other parts that...
given accurate information, if you will.
Exactly, and I want to make sure you have that and you understand that, and, if you need further or you need further clarification, we're certainly, and I'm not expecting you to just close this tonight and make a decision. So if you need further information, you need to digest the information, you're going to hear from the neighbors, there's going to be issues or concerns. Now, One of the things that I always look at too is trying to see if there's a way to ameliorate or mitigate impacts that may arise or issues that arise, particularly from neighbors. So one of the things, the first thing is, and you do have in your package a revised plan that reduced the size of the pool slightly and increased the setback from 14 feet to 15 feet. The pool is 15 by 28. It's the width that's the issue here. The width, you know.
Where's that on here?
It's right underneath.
Right below the pool.
See where the pool is?
Does that include the spa?
No. Doesn't include that. But, you know, the question immediately is the pool in this plan reduces it from the requested 14 feet to 15 feet. And it's shrunk the pool somewhat. My client is willing to consider other things if necessary. You know, there's a question in the design and the depth. The bottom of the pool, as per Marty Shea, has to be 2 feet above the groundwater level. So as if there's a way, you know, maybe we can lower the top level and decrease the
How
depth.
deep is the proposed pool?
Excuse me?
How deep is the proposed pool?
I think it's 5.5 feet at the deepest end. So, I mean, if they're willing to reduce the depth to like 4 feet, and you can sink the lower of the pool, that helps visual aspects along this line.
How tall is
Screening, obviously, it's in the front yard. It's a typical thing. Every other variance you always approved, you wanted screening.
How tall is the wall?
The wall is approximately 4 feet.
And I
You
believe there was
sure?
testimony about that. Well, we'll get to you. We'll get to you.
One at
Are you sure it's 4
at
feet?
the west end, it's like 4, and the other the east end, it's higher.
Well, and that
I
wall
haven't
will
measured.
definitely have to be reviewed by the building department. There's been public hearings about.
Yeah.
So what, when you said it's higher, could you be
It's
more?
because of the slopes towards the
Could you
water.
be more specific?
The
with
wall
number?
will have to comply with the town code.
That's right.
I
We're
mean,
not
the-
granting relief for it.
Because when you look at that wall, it's,
Right, and the wall is there
Very
and existing, and it's been part of the building permit applications. You do have pictures. And what I'm saying is at this end, it's you know.
What's the number?
Increases in the height. We'll give you I didn't go out and measure it, but we'll give you those numbers.
Good nor'easter, moon coming on, place getting trashed anyhow down there.
Well, the interesting thing
It is.
is now this house complies to FEMA. The house across the street complies to FEMA. If you look at the photographs,
Look at the elevation.
you know, this house directly across the street didn't need any relief from this board. They just got approval for a pool. It's not in the front yard. But I think it may need relief from this board. But they're looking, but that's the existing house across the street.
but it's not going to be on the.
Has a similar wall. Look at the wall, it's the same. Why is the wall there? In their case, it's because of the septic. You know, and that's the picture you have, you know, I think you have nice color pictures or whatever, but, so this is the house with the wall. And that's across the street. So, you know, our client's been willing, I believe, we'll state it again on the record, if necessary, screening.
The wall's only.
Types
needed
of
for the-
fence.
I'm sorry, the wall's only needed for the pool.
Correct.
What was the question?
He said the wall is only needed for the pool, and Wayne said yes.
But you just said it's already existing, right?
It's existing.
It is.
So,
Without the pool.
There's no
And they would
pool.
fill it. I mean, if this board were to deny it, it'll be filled land and it'll be landscaping.
but would the wall come down then?
Excuse me?
Would the wall come down?
No. Unless the building department said it didn't comply. But they would landscape that because there's no place to have a lawn or anything on this property. That was another element. Our client, I saw back in the records, was trying to get Marty to say, hey, can I have a little space? And that's what originally, this space was here.
No, I know, but you said the wall was for the pool. So I'm just trying to figure out, is
It
the
is.
wall a fence? Is it serving as a fence, or is it
It's a retaining wall. It's gonna be filled. It isn't filled right now because if the
So
pool
it-
goes in, you're not gonna fill the whole thing and then dig it out again.
But
There's a picture of that in here.
But the pool, But the wall was built prior to any approvals for the pool. It's a presumptive wall. I guess that's what I'm trying to figure
It'd
out.
be filled area, yeah.
But
One way or another was approved as part of the
No, but she's
conservation plan.
asked you, that's not the question she asked you. She asked you if it was built before.
No, I'm just trying to figure out if it's an integral, did you build it to support the property for the house? You said it was for the
It
pool.
will be.
There's no
It
approvals
can
for a
be.
pool yet.
It can and will be, but it'll also serve as retaining wall for the pool if the pool was to be approved.
It could serve as both. If the
Both.
pool is approved, it will be the fence for the pool. Otherwise,
If
it
it's not,
is.
it's going to be a lawn and filled land for lawn off the side of the house.
But it wouldn't be necessary for the house. It's
It would
only
be because the
necessary
client
for the
wants to
pool.
have a lawn there.
He's saying it
Wants
could,
at
it
the
could
height of
function
the
as
house.
both. It could function
You
as
have to put a
both.
fence on top of that,
Got
right?
it.
If he'll put the required 4-foot
No, I'm
fence.
saying pool or no pool, because of the height, they have to put a fence on top.
I don't think they do, but
really?
they would, for the
I'm just
pool,
thinking,
obviously.
I'm saying even not, because it's too high. I mean, they make railings over 30 inches.
They may have to, yeah, so.
All right, well, appreciate all the detail.
I have a question. In the beginning of your testimony, you talked about the process with the Conservation Board, and that Marty Shea approaches you a few hours before the meeting and says, this is your plan, take it or leave it. How large a house could you have built on that plan that he submitted?
How large?
Is it a building envelope he gives you? I think it's in the record, but that was months
Well,
ago.
Marty first gives you that sketch, and he says, do this other thing, and if you look at the house there, it was much smaller, but, he immediately recognizes, it's a footprint and that they can go up 2 stories. And some of the give and take back, one of the things that Marty didn't include, which was always part of the plan, was to have a garage attached. So that's, when you look at this plan, that's the biggest element, this part of the element that came back that wasn't on Marty's plan. And so, but that also was something that was recognized as being protective of the wetlands, because you're not going to have, because our client actually had a sketch where he wants a lawn up in this area, and that was like, no, for Marty. So,
Does the house have a CO now?
no, it's not complete yet.
Did you ask me if the house is?
Is the process
Yes,
being held up
yeah.
because of this application?
No. No, and you could see the existing conditions, there's landscaping to be done. There's an area along the westerly part of the property that purposely hasn't been landscaped yet.
Yep.
There's things that, if parties were willing to assure if there's the concerns about visual impact, whether it's screening or no screening.
Well, we
It
can't
could go
move the
either
wall.
way, because some parties might want a view of the water. And so there could be an agreement not to put something there, or as opposed to, well, maybe there should be screening, and I think part of this process is to hear what might be a part of that as well before any of that was done.
And another part of this process could be communication between the applicant's attorney and the neighbor's attorney about seeing if maybe something could be worked out.
Well, and I will wait to hear our comments, and I certainly reached out to Mr. Prudenti before the meeting, but we didn't get into a lengthy conversation at that point.
Okay.
And one other bit of information that I would find helpful is to know how low, you talked about shrinking the depth of the pool, but also how low you can go into the.
Well, if it's 5.5 and you're at the level and you got to be above, so I'm assuming that he's right at that water level. So if you took made it 4 feet, you took 1.5 feet off, so you're sinking it 1.5 feet. I mean, it's something that helps elevation-wise. It could be something coupled with screening if that's necessary, but, again, the view from the street for pedestrians walking to the water.
Okay.
The board members, Wayne, the board members definitely need copies of the few, prior COM board approvals that you handed out.
Absolutely. The ones I just gave?
Yeah, well, there was only one copy
Yeah,
of everything. Yeah.
everybody wants a copy.
Yeah,
Okay.
please, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Not a problem, because Candace is like, she yells at me when she sees me coming in with a package. I just want to make sure everybody wants a copy. But I'll get you each.
What kind of pool are you putting in there?
Excuse me?
What kind of pool is it going to be?
It's got to be salt water. I don't know. Is it a gun night?
Is it a prefab pool?
Salt-
Stainless steel
salt
pool?
water?
What kind of pool?
We have to have you come up and give testimony.
Okay.
All right.
Tough question.
But does it really
Kind of
matter
pool
what the content of the pool is?
Well, somebody
I just wanna
has-
know
Questions
everything.
asked, so.
It's a gun night pool.
Okay.
And it will be, as Marty Shea is required, salt water.
Okay.
And the other components that go along with it.
All right.
So I'll just leave this here in case somebody wants to refer.
Now we're going to hear the
Okay.
neighbors.
Yes, we are. Okay, Mr. Pradani.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I may, I'll keep my voice up so you can hear me, okay?
Okay.
Good evening. I'll try to be brief. Good evening, everybody. My esteemed...
Do you mind sitting in the middle?
I didn't know if Wayne was coming back. Despite my esteemed colleague's comments, I do disagree, and I hold Wayne in high regard, but obviously we're looking at this from two different perspectives. In listening to him, it almost seems as though their application is Marty Shea made me do it. And quite frankly, nothing could be further than the truth. We found that one document, we thought it was important to bring it to your attention, and it clearly showed that there was options. There were options when they built the house, when they were looking at the construction, you looked at the footprint. One of the comments that is made that is, well, the septic system had to be located over here. No, that was not the only spot. That spot fit with the septic, that fit their plan, and that fit their plan for, well, the pool, maybe not a pool. And the applicant came right before this very board and said before the Conservation Board that he would take that gamble. And quite frankly, it's a gamble that shouldn't be placed on the backs of the homeowners that are there. This housing design, it's to each its own, but it's garish for this particular area. It doesn't conform at all with the character, the size. We hear different numbers going back and forth, but I've looked at this house, I've looked at it from the street. I'm about 6'2", 180, maybe a couple of pounds over that, but the wall is over my head at a particular area. Mr. DeCessa brings up a good point with the and that is a structure, and that is not on the permit. That is, it's totally built for the wall. If the pool is not approved, it is our contention that that wall must come down. And they retain their lawn, however, they retain their lawn and they change their elevations. The septic system, everything could have been rotated around, but they were insistent that that garage, and nobody wants to talk about that. This is a 7,000 square foot structure when you look at everything. Nobody ever talks about the garage. The living space that's over the garage is bigger than the living room in my own house. That garage structure, even though it's tied into the building, is bigger than 39% of the homes that are in that community. Clearly, this is a lot that was overbuilt, and then to say, well, I have no other place than to put this pool in the front yard, never mind about a safety hazard. What about people taking their grandchildren down and walking them down to the bay? Mr. Bruin acknowledges that this is a pedestrian area. This is a little beach. What kind of protection is going to be to protect the neighborhood from these pool accidents that happen, you know, these tragedies that happen all the time? How high a structure is it going to be, and further impact the very community that they don't deserve this?
Well, if a pool were to go in, it would have to comply with whatever the
Right, the
town
state
code
building code. I mean,
requires for
it's-
any pool.
You know, whether to the front yard, the backyard, the side yard.
Well, now put the compliant structures in place, and now you have a fence which is going to be required, which will be 9 feet over the roadway.
That will need to be approved by the building department.
But that is exactly, if this starts to evolve this way again, and it's a hardship that they created, it's a gamble, and they are making everybody try to comply with what they want instead of they trying to comply what the different boards would have found acceptable, and they are trying to basically put a
square peg into a very small round hole. And I would hope that you guys would most respectfully deny this application, and we would ask for some time to put some written material together, and I would like the opportunity to speak to my colleague about this.
Okay.
Are we going to hear from her?
Hey, fellas, did you want to talk? No?
No?
I have nothing to say at all, John.
Not one of them was.
Okay, Helen, it's up to them. It's up to them.
And we're waiting on
there's
some
somebody
information.
stepping up.
Okay.
I've been sworn in.
You were sworn in before, so if you can just state your name.
Thomas Caruso,
Okay.
11 Ludlow Lane.
Okay, and Thomas, if you want to have a seat?
I'd just like to state for the record that this wall or this rectangular enclosure that was built prior to the pool being built was
He was sworn in previously.
No, I just want to know where it is. 11 Ludlow Lane.
Yep, sure.
This triangular structure that was built to hold the pool that was not approved is at least 6 foot tall. So my understanding is that according to the code, then you're going to put another 4 feet on top of that, some type of a fence on top of that. You're going to have a 14, you're going to have 12 to 14.
Whatever it is in terms of the retaining wall and/or fencing is going to be complying with code. We're not going to be granting any relief for that.
My thing that frustrates me the most is how can that wall have been built prior to this whole pool issue being developed? It's like my grandmother used to say, it's the cart before the horse. I mean, that's basically what he's done here. He's built this structure, and now he's dumping a pool into it, forcing it down everybody's throat.
Okay. Well, there was an application, I presume, submitted to the building department for different structures that were going up, including the house.
And everyone keeps making,
and this must have been
and
on
everyone
there.
keeps making reference to the house across the street who has a wall. Yes, they have a wall, and the only reason they have a wall is because their septic system is below it. That's the only reason.
Wayne, is there a building permit for the wall?
I was just going to look at the building.
Probably not.
Okay, well, we're going to find out. We're going to find out.
Ask him.
Okay.
Should I wait, or?
No, keep
You
going.
can keep going.
Keep
I'm
going.
done. I'm basically done.
Okay.
Really? Okay, all right, thank you for comments, appreciate it. Sure, no problem. Okay.
You're not allowed. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. No, I'm teasing. Come on.
Okay, were you previously sworn in? No, okay, then I have to swear you in, if you can state your name and address.
My name is Phil Stallone. I live at 16 Ludlow Lane.
Okay, and do you swear?
I do swear to tell
the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and you can have a seat if you want?
No, I'd rather stand.
You'd rather stand?
I have a bad
Okay,
back.
okay.
I'd rather stand up straight.
No problem. Must have been bad sitting back there if you're
No,
back.
not bad. Not that bad.
Okay.
That wall is right on the property line. Is that a normal thing in the town of Southampton, to have that 6-foot wall right on the property line? Now, I understand if it's being considered a fence, it should only be 4 feet high. Am I correct?
Correct.
Now, this is 6 feet.
It depends
I'm
on.
5.5 feet tall, and if I stand at street level, I can't see over the top of that wall.
Yep. Retaining walls are not common
Yeah,
as
but
as compared with
retaining-
fences.
Retaining wall for what? That wall was put in to retain a pool? What was it erected for?
We'll ask the attorney for the
And
applicant.
also, the setback from the street. That is right on the property line. Where's this pool going? How far from the property
The
line is that?
the proposal is for 15 feet.
The proposal. What is the proper setback from the property line to any building structure?
Well, to a pool.
Is it
would
40
be-
feet?
No, I think it's 50.
50 feet?
Well,
For the pool.
but 50 feet from the street.
Correct.
From the
No,
street.
From the property line, not the street. From what I remember, when I built that house 20 years ago,
The relief-
setback had to be,
The relief they're requesting is 50 feet to 14 feet from Ludlow Lane in terms of setback.
14 feet.
14 feet, according to the original application. Maybe it's been changed.
50 to 14, sir.
It's at 15. They
It's
moved
now
it.
15. So it was 14, now it's 15. But the setback from Ludlow Lane, 50.
50 feet.
Yeah.
Okay. And they're looking for 14.
15.
Now 15.
15.
Yeah.
Is there anywhere in the town of Southampton where there's a swimming pool in the front yard?
Well, every application is viewed on its own merits.
Yeah.
Throughout the town, yes.
Yes.
There is some?
There are some that they need variances from us. And what happens is when we have properties that have multiple front yards, okay? So.
What's
the-
that? Is that considered multiple front yards?
It is. So Smith Creek makes one front yard.
Okay.
Ludlow Lane makes a second front yard.
Okay.
So when we have properties that are constrained with more than one front yard, not always, but we do grant from time to time front yard relief for either front yard or side yard, pools or accessory structures.
Okay.
At times. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I guess then it's up to you guys whether you approve it or not.
Okay.
But he created his own problem. No one else.
Self-created hardship.
I'm sorry?
It's a self-created hardship.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. So Wayne, I don't know if you have anything in terms of the building permit and the retaining wall as to whether it has one.
I do have a copy of the building permit. What I don't have is the plans that go along with it. There's nothing specifically stating anything about the retaining wall or not, but certainly, I'm going to go to the building department tomorrow and find out what, where, and where, or how it's a retaining wall. And I know this board's been dealing with retaining walls, and the town board was even considering different things related to retaining walls.
Yes.
And other walls and other fences and everything else as well. So, and I identified that with my client that we need to get an understanding of what that is. Now, notwithstanding all that, from day one, and this goes back to, again, what was happening at the Conservation Board, is that wall has always been a part of the plans. It was approved in all parts of the permits, and that whole area is there. And whether the pool goes in or not, it's going to be, like I said, a filled area with a lawn. And if it's not, it'll, and of course, it's a retaining wall, and I have to meet whatever the code is. So we're going to find out, from the building department, if it
the
meets
wall's
code
permitted,
currently, the way it is right
if
now.
it needs relief.
If it needs relief and whatever, but
Yeah.
we're going to go back, and if we have to modify the wall, we'll modify the wall, make it comply. But I'll make sure you have a copy of the building permit and the plans that go along with that. And as council asked, all the prior wetland permits. This is the first wetland permit when the pool was taken off the plans. And you can see clearly on it, the retaining wall, and the wall actually extended further down. And this portion of the wall has since been eliminated.
Does it say
from
how
this.
high the wall is on there?
It doesn't.
No, I'm just wondering.
It doesn't.
Sometimes
There's no
it's like the
cross
front,
section,
yeah.
but
Cross section.
yeah. I mean, there's some on a, but it really, I don't think it talks about certain heights, but whatever, from the footing and so on. Nonetheless, I'm going to make sure the building department goes out there and with our client, measure, do whatever we have to do to make sure it complies.
And I think we would have a much better comfort level knowing
Absolutely.
one way or another.
And
Absolutely, I don't want to be in front of you, and we need another form of relief if that's the case. I mean, we need to find that out and get that properly either before you or not, or make it comply, which is, I think, most important.
I find it somewhat objectionable for you to use the word retaining wall in the broad sense of, if it wasn't the pool, it could be for some flowers and landscaping. Because if there were no pool, I don't think that wall would be called a retaining wall.
Well,
I
the
think we
building
should-
department will determine whether or
Yes,
not it's
I think
a
it's a
retaining
we
wall.
can say it's a wall, but to put the adjective retaining before it is a little bit premature because we haven't designated whether or not the pool is acceptable.
But the
Well,
building
whether the pool
department.
goes there or not, it's going to be
Okay.
filled, and it'll be retaining the fill from going out into the street. So, either way, one way or another, that was the intent. So, but on the other hand, Marty Shea's been aware of the wall from day one, and that sort of
All I
tells
hear
you.
is Marty, 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 Marty,
Just
Marty,
saying.
Marty, Marty, Marty. You know what? Maybe Marty needs to come here and we find out the history of this application right from the horse's mouth.
Well, I don't know that Marty's going to come here. I don't know.
No?
No.
I don't think it's appropriate, but
It's not
number one,
appropriate.
because, and I say Marty, but we all say that loosely, it's
Well,
the
then
town
then
conservation.
maybe it's not appropriate for me to listen to you talk about Marty all day, all night long for the last hour.
Well, it was part of the process. Marty had a role in it.
Listen,
Conservation
I've
Board,
been-
I'm sorry.
I've
The
been on the
Conservation Board.
Conservation Board. I've sat there myself. I was a former member.
You've mentioned that once or twice before.
Once or twice.
I never heard it.
So I think we have some homework, unless there's other questions specifically.
All
I
right.
mean, I have some homework to go back and do, and I want to talk to our neighbors, and
Good.
I have one other comment.
Okay. Okay. Hold on. We just need to get you on the
Everyone keeps
tape.
talking about the height of the wall. I will be available all day tomorrow. Any one of you, men or women, can come by, and I'll be glad to take you down there with my tape measure.
I've been down there and we've seen it, but the building department for us, they have to go out and make that.
Well, they-
And I've
But
been
I've
down
seen
there
it.
too,
I've
by the
been
way.
down there and
I
saw
have-
it.
I
and
have as well, yeah.
It looks higher than 4 feet.
Absolutely.
So they got to deal with that.
We're gonna see.
What's our date?
I'm going to go down tomorrow and try to jump out.
I do, really quick, I promise. The one comment that keeps on getting repeated, and I went back to the Conservation Board just for clarification on this.
Yeah, we need to get you closer.
When they did, when the Conservation Board did issue their approval, and I believe in sum and substance, if it's not an exact vote, I said, so wait a minute, you can build any structure you want as long as it meets the different setbacks. And they said, so I said, I could build the Empire State Building. They said, another agency would not likely to approve it, but as long as you met these particular setbacks, as far as that board was concerned, that was the extent of their jurisdiction and their concern. So to say that and try to suggest that they're taking that as a tacit approval of this must be located here, I believe is a stretch. Thank you.
Okay, all right. All right, so next question is from here, do we want written submissions? Do we want to have them come back?
I'd like to have him come back.
December.
I think maybe because there's some questions and, you know. it's-
Yep.
I think he's going to want to come back when Wayne gets his answers. so.
Yep, yep, okay. All right, so.
When do you
ne-
wanna come back?
When do you want to come back?
Never.
I will tell you that we do not have time available in July. So it's either going to be in
First
June or it's
meeting
going
in
to be in August. Let me give you possible dates.
Yeah, December's good.
June 20th or August 1st.
August 1st?
June 20th or August 1st.
So those are your dates.
June 28th or August 1st?
20th.
Or I'm sorry, August 20th.
June 20.
June 20.
June 20.
August 1st.
Or August 1st.
June 20.
June 20, does that work? Well, Helen, you want to make the motion since you're the lead?
Well, we're adjourning because we have a lot of information that we need to get,
Yes.
because a decision cannot be written until we learn everything. And give you an opportunity if you want to bring any more of your
Second.
residents of the
He
street.
represents.
We'll rent the van and bring the whole block.
Okay.
June 20th, second.
Okay. All right. Ms. Burgess,
So the case will be adjourned till June 20th.
held open for all purposes till June 20th?
Yes.
Okay, and we have a second. Okay, Ms. Burgess?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. DeSessa?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Mr. Daly?
Aye.
Mr. Tudhill? Aye. Mr. Hahn?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you all for being here.
Right.
Thank you.
I have a decision in the matter of the whole calendar.
In the meantime, you guys could have a discussion. Feel free, please. That is outside. Have a good night.
I didn't want the room all summer.
Decisions, anyone got some? Let's go. Oh, do we have
In
two more
the
applications?
matter of the application of 90 Wild Goose Lane LLC,
97?
97. Yeah, just 7 left of 90.
Making sure I'm checking the right one.
97, sorry. The subject premises consists of a parcel containing 62,405 square feet in R60 zoning, located at 97 Wild Goose Lane, Watermill. SCTM 900, 103, 228. Newly constructed home is being built on the property, and the subject parcel is conforming to size. This board finds this application to be type 2 action under the SECRA. And our decision is that grants applicant relief from the following provisions of the town code for proposed tennis court 330-11 for an accessory you can say that, rear yard setback of 15 feet where 30 feet is required.
I can read that decision.
And 330-77D for a proposed rear yard coverage of 28% where a maximum of 20% permitted for a proposed 55 by 110-foot tennis court. This relief is conditioned on the tennis court being sunken 3 feet below ground level and on the applicant planting screening of evergreens running the exterior south side of the tennis court. The proposed tennis court will have the dimensional requirements and location as shown on the survey by Martin D. Hand of Hands On Surveying, June 22nd, 2018, last revised March 13th, 2019, which was submitted with the application and is incorporated herein. Grant of the foregoing relief is subject to the conditions of such other permits as the applicant has heretofore acquired or may otherwise be necessary for final approval of the proposed tennis court to be built at the subject property.
Second.
Mr. Daly?
Aye.
Mr. DeCessa?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Mr. Hahn?
Aye.
Mr. Tuthill? Aye. Ms. Burgess? Chair votes aye.
I have a decision in the matter of the application of JSC Resources Incorporated. The subject premises is located at 19 Sophia Court, West Hampton, Town of Southampton, County of Suffolk, and State of New York. The board finds the subject application to be a type 2 action under SECRA. John Bennett, Esquire, Bennett and Reed, LLP, appeared on behalf of the applicant, stating that they propose to subdivide the premises into 3 flag lots, where each will have a 10-foot wide flagpole to form a 30-foot wide common driveway to serve the newly formed parcels. Mr. Bennett asserted that there would be no detriment to the character of the neighborhood, noting that at the time that the subdivision of Sophia Place was approved, it was recognized that the premises would be further subdivided in the future. Mr. Bennett also submitted the pre-application report adopted by the Planning Board on September 14, 2017, that stated that the preferred plan included the 3 separate flag lots with a 10-foot flagpole. It passes a 5-part test. Therefore, this board grants applicant relief from Town Code Section 330-82, lot width, to allow the 3 parcels of a proposed 3-lot subdivision to each have a 10-foot wide flagpole where a minimum of 20 feet is required, as shown on the proposed minor subdivision plan prepared by Jeffrey T. Butler, P.E., last revised January 23, 2019. Grant of the foregoing relief is subject to such other conditions and permits as the applicant has already acquired or may otherwise have to acquire for final approval of the subject premises, including any recommendations made by the Planning Board with respect to improvements of the flags and/or common driveway.
Second. Ms. Burgess?
Thank.
Mr. Tuthill? Aye. Mr. Hahn?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Mr. Daly? Aye. Mr. DeCessa?
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
A decision in the matter of Daniel Thorpe and Christina Thorpe, 1103 Brickhill Road, Sag Harbor, New York, tax map 900-24-3, lot 16.007. I'm going to read the request of relief at the end. Public hearing, agent for the applicant, Brian Lacazio, testified that they wish to legalize an accessory building that was converted into an accessory apartment by a prior owner of the premises, and Mrs. Thorpe's parents are going to move into it, legalize it. The prior owner does no longer live in the United States, according to the applicant, and the habitable space of the accessory apartment is 523 square feet. The habitable space of the main dwelling is 1,325 square feet, making the apartment 39.5% of the main dwelling. They originally requested the attached shed be allowed to remain. At the public hearing, they amended their request and advised that they will be removing the attached shed. It's a Type 2 application under SECRA. There was no opposition. Adjacent property owner Patricia Arancio Reemkes submitted a letter in support of the application. Therefore, in the interest of it meets the 5-part test. Therefore, in the interest of justice and for the reasons set forth herein, this board grants relief from Town Code 1 to legalize the location of the accessory building 330-11 residential district's table of dimensional regulations for an accessory front yard of setback of 20.6 feet or 70 feet is required, and 330-76D placement of accessory buildings, structures, and uses in all districts, and 330-83C yards to allow the accessory building to remain within the required front yard of the principal building, and 2, to legalize the conversion of the accessory building into an accessory apartment without the benefit of a building permit, 330-11.2 G1 accessory apartment special standards to allow the size of the accessory apartment to be 39.5% of the total floor area of the main dwelling, where a maximum of 35% is permitted. 2, 330-11.2 J to allow the 2 off-street parking spaces for the accessory apartment to be located within the required front yard, all as shown on the survey made by Borowski Land Surveying last dated May 6, 2019, which shows the existing improvements, and letter from Daniel Calvin Thorpe, architect, dated May 8, 2019, which lists the square footage of the accessory apartment and main dwelling, as well as the ratio between the two. The granting of this relief is subject to the conditions of such other permits as the applicant has already acquired or may otherwise have to acquire for final approval of the structures on the subject premises.
Second.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Mr. Hahn.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Recused.
Mr. DeSessa.
Recused.
Mr. Tuthill. Aye. Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
I have a decision in the matter of Nicholas Stefanu, 26 Fortune Cookie Lane, Hampton Bays, New York, tax map number 900-295-1-10.14. This is R20 zoning, type 2 under SECRA. I will read the relief at the end. Public hearing, the applicant testified that relief is needed to legalize a roof over terrace that is attached to the rear of his 2-story dwelling. He also testified that the terrace was initially proposed to be covered by an open pergola, but that they decided to completely cover it, and the contractor A&J Construction led him to believe that the terrace was an accessory structure and no permit was required. Although advertised as such, during the applicant's testimony, it was revealed that a variance for total lot coverage was not required, and a revised survey, last revised April 15, 2019, confirmed such with a total area lot coverage under 20%. The applicant also testified that there was mature and dense screening which blocks the view of the roof over terrace from adjacent property owners. There was no opposition. Passes a 5-part test. Therefore, this board grants relief from Town Code Section 330-11 for a principal rear yard setback of 31.7 feet where 50 feet is required to legalize a roof over terrace attached to the main dwelling without the benefit of a building permit as shown on the survey prepared by Paul Bolton of Homestead Land Surveying, dated October 5, 2017, last revised April 15, 2019. The grant of the foregoing relief is subject to such other conditions and permits as applicant has already acquired or may otherwise have to acquire for final approval of the subject premises.
Second.
Mr. Hahn.
Aye.
Mr. DeSessa.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Mr. Tuthill.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess. Chair votes aye.
Termination of the matter of the application of Joseph and Donna Andreassi, property at 1332 Deerfield Road, Watermill, New York, tax map 900-64-3, lot 19.001. I'm going to read the requested relief at the end. The property is currently used as a bed and breakfast. The applicant's attorney, Kim Judd, testified that they wish to convert an existing structure, that is currently used as storage, carriage house. She further testified that the owners would not live in the carriage house and that they are required to reside in the bed and breakfast, and that the owners also agreed not to use the carriage house in conjunction with the bed and breakfast. Property totals 10.586 acres, and as such is over twice the size required in the zoning district, which is the reason they are requesting to waive the requirement of marine and outside rights, and instead request to make an internal transfer. If the board agreed to a waiver of the TDR PVC, the applicants would agree that any future Subdivision of the property would be predicated on either the termination of the carriage house or the carriage house being made to otherwise comply with the town code. It's a type 2 application, find it meets the 5-part test, therefore in the interest of justice and for reasons set forth herein, this board grants relief from Town Code 330-9, density incentive provisions to allow an existing one-story frame barn with loft to be converted into a 2-story carriage house on a lot where a single-family 2-story dwelling with a bed and breakfast use exists. Town Code 330-9D4 to permit a waiver of the transfer of development rights where one or more development right, TDR, or Pine Barren credit, PBC, shall be transferred to the site. And Town Code 330-9D4H to allow 2 access driveways to remain on a parcel where the access to the principal dwelling and carriage house shall be limited to 1 driveway. All is shown on the survey made by Kenneth H. Beckman, land surveyor, last dated February 7, 2019, which shows the existing and proposed improvements as well as the architectural renderings made by John R. Van Velser, architect, PC, dated February 2, 2019, which shows the proposed improvements. The applicant agrees that any future subdivision of the property would be predicated on either termination of the carriage house or the carriage house being made to otherwise comply with the town code. The granting of this relief is subject to the conditions of such other permits as the applicant has already acquired or may otherwise have to acquire for final approval of the structures on the subject premises.
Second.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Mr. Hahn.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Mr. Tudhill.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Mr. DeSessa.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
You go.
Don't be shy.
Any takers?
In the matter, the application of Siljam LLC, 220 Geyer Road, Bridgehampton, New York, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 949-1-9.7. Applicant requests relief from the following provisions of the town code for a proposed tennis court, 330-11, for an accessory distance from street setback of 30 feet where 90 feet is required, and 330-76D and 330-83C to allow a proposed tennis sports court to be located within the required front yard, and 2 for a proposed detached garage, 330-11 for an accessory distance from street setbacks of 65 feet easterly property line and 40 feet southerly property line where 90 feet is required, and 330-76D and 330-83C to allow the detached garage to be located within the required front yard. The premises is at 220 Geyer Road in Bridgehampton, and is approximately 83,706 square feet. It's in the CR 80 zoning district. Applicant took title to the premise by deed dated May 21st, 2018. This board finds this to be a type 2 action under SECRA. At the public hearing on this matter, hearings on this
Paraphrase this
matter.
one, Mike.
I'm sorry?
You can paraphrase this one. This is the long
Okay,
one.
thank you. Bruce Anderson of Suffolk Environmental and Jason Poremba of Jason Thomas Architect testified that the applicant seeks variances in order to construct a 60 by 120 foot tennis court and 20 by 25 foot sports court and detached garage on the premises. While Mr. Anderson testified there's a conforming location, he noted that the proposed location is preferred by the applicant, allowing them to avoid construction near a natural ravine, and likewise benefits the neighbors by keeping their view shed open. While this board does not typically involve itself in matters regarding road drainage issues, it does recognize that there are instances where conditions are appropriate in order to address the concerns of the neighbors as a result of the grant of variances. Here, the suggested mitigation over the fact that there may have been ongoing drainage erosion issues on a part of Geyer Road adjacent to this property and across from a ravine. Here, the suggested mitigation, other than additional screening along Geyer Road, has been agreed to by the applicants and will be conditions of the granting of these variances. Therefore, this board grants relief from the following provisions. Proposed tennis sports court 330-11 for an accessory distance from street setbacks of 30 feet where 90 feet is required, 330-76 and 330-83 to allow a proposed tennis court and sports court to be located within the required front yard, and 2 for a proposed attached garage for an accessory distance from the street setback of 65 feet on the eastern property line and 40 feet on the southerly property line where 90 feet is required. And 330-76D and 330-83C to allow for the detached garage to be located within the required front yard. Variances are for structures shown on the survey prepared by John F. Borilski of Borilski Land Surveying dated March 1st, 2018, last revised April 24th, 2019. This decision is conditioned upon the following. The tennis court, sports court will be sunk 4 feet and screened by 5 to 6 feet osmanthus holly, 4 feet on center, as shown on the landscape plan dated April 30th, 2019, prepared by Christopher LaGuardia, which will be installed prior to the issuance of a certificate of compliance and shall be maintained by the applicant and their successors, and assigns the applicant shall submit an SWPPP that must be reviewed and approved prior to the construction of the tennis court and garage, and the portion of Guyer Road from the end of property line lot 150, tax map number 949-13.1, to the dead end shall be suitably improved to the satisfaction of the town engineering department and highway department prior to the issuance of a certificate of compliance for the proposed structures. Grant of the foregoing relief is subject to such other conditions and permits as applicant has already acquired or may otherwise have to acquire for final approval of the subject premises.
Second.
Mr. Daly?
Aye.
Mr. Hahn?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Burgess?
Aye.
Mr. Tudhill?
Aye.
Mr. DeSessa?
I'll recuse myself from that application.
Chair votes aye.
I have a decision in the matter of Elizabeth Fornadoni and Juan Mendez, 25 Cooks Lane, Watermill, New York, tax map number 900-81-3-5. Applicants request relief from Town Code 330-11 for a principal front yard setback of 69 feet where 80 feet is required, and a minimum side yard setback of 13 feet where 30 feet is required for a proposed addition to an existing residence. Type 2 under SECRA. CR 80 zoning district. The public hearing, Elizabeth Vale, Farrell Fritz, PC, attorney for the applicant, stated that the applicants seek relief from town code to convert the existing garage into an addition to the dwelling and construct a one-car garage addition to the dwelling with a mudroom. As the lot is a single and separate non-conforming lot, Ms. Vale asserted that it is entitled to reduce setbacks pursuant to Town Code Section 330-115D subsection 1. Therefore, the applicants are arguably asking for a proposed side yard setback of 13 feet where 27.6 feet is permitted. She also stated they also seek relief for a proposed front yard setback of 69 feet where 80 feet is required. Passes the 5-bar test. I read the relief in the beginnings. This decision is conditioned upon the applicants and their successors' heirs and assigns maintaining the existing hedges vegetation on the west side of the premises that will provide screening of the proposed addition. The grant of the foregoing relief is subject to such other conditions and permits as applicant has already acquired or may otherwise have to acquire for final approval of the subject premises.
Second.
Mr. Hahn?
Aye.
Mr. DeSessa?
Aye.
Mr. Daly?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Burgess?
Aye.
Mr. Tudhill?
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
I have a decision in the matter of the application of Bayview 4 LP.
Second.
45 Halsey Lane South, Watermill, New York. Suffolk County Tax Map 900-115-2-30.11 and 30.12. This decision's going to cover both of those applications.
Wow,
All right?
very impressive.
And I'll read the relief at the end, just so you know. Just to refresh your memory, this is for an 8-foot-high deer fence. You know, these people have lost crops.
Agricultural use.
They've used electric fences, hunting and planting rows of sacrificial crops, and it hasn't worked. It passes the 5-part test. So, therefore, for the reasons set forth herein, this board grants relief from Town Code 330-109A, 1, 2, and 3, fences, walls, accessory driveways, structures, and clotheslines, to allow for the construction of an 8-foot-high deer fence around the perimeter of the property as shown on the survey prepared by Robert A. Smith of Squires, Holden, Wiesenbacher, and Smith, Land Surveyors, PC, prepared February 19, 2019. The granting of this relief is conditioned upon agricultural activities existing on the premises. Once such activities cease, the fence must be removed. The granting of relief is conditioned upon such other permits as applicant has already acquired or may otherwise have to acquire for final approval of the subject premises.
Okay, so it's 18.1 and 18.2? is it?
No,
No.
30.11.
30.11 and 30.12.
Okay, so let's do.
Just green thumb, green thumb.
Okay, so I just want to do them as two separate votes. I think probably we should do it as two separate votes.
So I will second 30.11 first.
Okay, Mr. Tudhill.
Aye.
Mr. DeSessa.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Mr. Hahn.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
I will second 30.12.
Okay, Mr. Tudhill.
Aye.
Mr. Hahn.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Mr. DeSessa.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Motion to close.
Motion to close. Do we have a second? To close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.